Chapter 766. Ding, 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 ding. All the clones shattered. Ding Ming swooped down with his sword, like an eagle flying across the sky in a rainstorm. If Yuan Lai's golden eagle sword was only similar in appearance, then Ding Ming's heavenly sword, three forms, was the essence. This sword light was very simple. Flash, extinguish. In the blink of an eye, the sunlight was still very dazzling 1 second, but the next second, it disappeared without a trace. There was nowhere to hide, and there was no trace to be found. This was also the stab that teacher Zhao Yu had taught him. Although this stab was simple, it contained all the transformations. It truly achieved the simplicity of the complex, returning to the natural state. The sword light flashed, and Ding Ming swooped directly into the second layer of the ring. When he looked back, there was a small crack in the chest of the widow's real body. This crack slowly enlarged and gradually spread to all parts of the body. The widow's mirror image slowly dimmed until it completely disappeared. There was no more pink demon's energy in the air. Xian Yuan was pleasantly surprised. "Did you destroy this demoness?" This time, Ding Ming was silent for a long time before she replied, "No, she hasn't been destroyed." Xian Yuan was stunned. "Why?" Ding Ming's face became expressionless. "There is no why. She was not destroyed. So, she was not destroyed." Xian Yuan obviously did not understand what he meant, but she soon saw that although the unique pink energy of the widow had disappeared, there was a white powdery mist above the sacred lake. This mist was also extremely cold, but the purity of the energy was many times greater than that of the widow. Suddenly, these air currents gathered together, and the air twisted. A giant monster appeared in front of them. Xian Yuan was stunned. The ancient beast, thunder-scaled demonic fish. It was indeed a fish, but its size was comparable to a small spaceship. Its whole body was covered with hideous black scales like blades, and the fins under its ribs had turned into a pair of wings. The fish's mouth was at least 5 meters wide, and there were 6 tentacles on its head. Each tentacle wrapped a strange eyeball. This thunder-scaled demonic fish looked really scary. At this time, the demonic fish spoke. "Ding Ming, how dare you destroy my body? You must die here today." After saying that, it rushed over. The distance between the two was still very far, but the demonic fish was not only agile, but also astonishingly fast. It felt like it was swimming freely in the cave. There was no way Ding Ming would let it hit him. He flew up into the sky, and the demonic fish crashed into the ring. The southern ring collapsed with a series of muffled sounds. The demonic fish twisted its body and turned its head around. The eyeballs on the top of its head hissed as 6 thick black chains shot out. These chains were like steel cables and energy streams, but they were more like rays. In an instant, they bound Ding Ming's body, making it impossible for him to move. Ding Ming immediately felt that the operation of the origin in his body was greatly hindered. It was the feeling of being hit by the demon's cloak. At this moment, the demonic fish shot over like a missile. It opened its hideous mouth, and one could see that its mouth was full of needle-like teeth. There were at least a few hundred of them. If one was bitten, even a spaceship would be reduced to dust. With a loud clang, a dazzling crown shield appeared and enveloped Ding Ming. Hundreds of steel spikes bit into shield. Even though Ding Ming had always been confident in the strength of his diamond astral art, countless cracks appeared on the shield in an instant. Moreover, these cracks were spreading and expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Haha, come in. Come into my stomach. This is where you belong." The demonic fish let out a savage laugh. "Dream on." Ding Ming decisively raised his right palm and aimed it directly at the demonic fish's mouth. With a loud boom, a bright white torrent of flames surged out from Ding Ming's palm. It was like a railgun, pushing out with an earth-shattering force. This palm strike was earth-shattering. It directly drowned the demonic fish. The beam of light sank into the southern ring and easily penetrated the cave wall. Moreover, Ding Ming simply detached his crown shield and threw it into the beam of light as well. The beam of light probably penetrated several kilometers deep into the mountain. Deep within the cave wall, There were continuous rumbling sounds. The entire cave shook, and the southern wall completely disappeared. This palm strike lasted for a full half a minute before Ding Meng stopped. He did not believe that he could not destroy the demonic fish with his powerful divine light energy. An attack of this level would turn even a starship into ashes in an instant. However, when the strong light disappeared and the smoke dispersed, Ding Meng was dumbfounded. The demonic fish had stopped at the southern ring and was perfectly fine. The black scales on the demonic fish's body were spread out like a peacock spreading its tail, forming a steel barrier in front of him. The divine light's origin flames did not hurt him at all. Ha ha ha! The demonic fish raised his head and laughed. How can you destroy such a powerful weapon in the universe with your puny skills? As he laughed, hundreds of steel thorns flew out of his mouth and rained down on Ding Meng. Not good. Ding Meng had already sensed the unprecedented terror of the demons. He raised his wristband and pushed it forward. The holy light veil was immediately erected in front of him. This holy light veil was no ordinary shield. It was formed by the combination of divine light essence, adamantium system energy, thermal energy, and inverse source crystal energy. Normally, Ding Meng was confident that this holy light veil would be able to withstand a blow from an ordinary starship's main cannon. But now, the steel thorns were constantly tearing the holy light veil apart. The holy light veil was like a glass wall. It was constantly being pierced by flying needles, and the wall would shatter with a ringing sound. Ding Meng leaped up at top speed. The lightsaber in his hand created a curtain of light that knocked away the steel thorns. The demonic fish did not give him chance. It opened its mouth and spat out a large cloud of black mist. This black mist was actually faintly glowing. As soon as the divine light lightsaber came into contact with the black mist, the light on the blade quickly began to dim. It was obvious that the demon's power had diluted it. Ding Meng had no choice but to retreat in the air. However, the black fog split into two, transforming into two black dragons that bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they roared towards Ding Meng. This time, he had no choice but to take the black dragon blast head-on. Ding Meng struck out with both of his palms. It was the standard sacred tiger yang palm. With a muffled bang, the black dragon was reduced to ashes. However, Ding Meng was also sent flying by the impact. He fell to the side of the holy light lake and knelt on the ground. Pure white blood kept flowing out of his mouth. It was obvious that he was seriously injured. The demonic fish raised its head and laughed. Foolish and ridiculous humans. You're so superstitious about the illusory power of divine light technology. You don't know that the martial arts of us demons are the supreme existence in the universe. Ding Meng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stood up again. His eyes were filled with ferocity. I'll show you the true power of divine light technology. The demonic fish was stunned. He suddenly realized that Ding Meng's light figure had undergone a great change. First of all, his aura was still increasing geometrically. Secondly, Ding Meng seemed to have light armor, cloak, combat boots, shoulder pads, and a crown on his body. The demonic fish was completely stunned. He felt that the figure in front of him was very familiar. At this moment, he could not help but exclaim, "You little brat, you're actually that old bastard's successor." This was the image of the divine light general. In the long universe, the demonic fish in his original form had fought him countless times. After entering the three-dimensional space, although their strength had been greatly reduced, the original image was still preserved. The divine light imprint on Ding Meng's face suddenly separated. It spun and transformed into a bright white spear. This was the final form of this set of equipment. Vicious people never wasted time when they fought. Ding Meng twisted one of his palms in the air. The divine light spear, which was originally only 2 meters long, suddenly expanded by 10 times. The spear was thicker than Ding Meng's body and was about 50 meters long. "I told you to dodge." Ding Meng pushed with one palm. The spear shot towards the demonic fish like a beam of light. The demonic fish knew how powerful Mao Xing's divine technique was. He raised his scales again to block the attack. His scales were made from rare materials of the demons. They had no problem blocking the divine light energy. However, the problem was the pearl ring on Ding Meng's spear. The ring began to spin rapidly when it collided with the demonic fish. Countless scales flew into the air and were harvested like rice straws. The demonic fish gritted his teeth. He opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of black fog. The black fog formed a black spear. The two spears stabbed at each other. At this time, the cave could no longer withstand the fluctuations of the battle. The four walls were collapsing, and the sacred lake was spinning violently. The figures on the screen were about to take shape. The demonic fish had underestimated Ding Meng's strength. The divine light spear was like an unusually sharp probe. The energy from the spear continued to flow through the body of the spear. It was determined to dig out both the spear and the demonic fish. With a bang, one of the eyeballs on the demonic fish's head suddenly exploded. It turned into a splatter of black blood. It was obvious that the demonic fish had been severely injured. "You damned brat!" The demonic fish let out a mournful cry from its throat. The demon's spear suddenly expanded and pushed towards the divine light spear. Pooh! Ding Meng spat out a large amount of blood. He was forced to retreat a few meters. The demonic fish was in the same situation. The energy in his body was like a bottomless pit. The explosive increase in energy was so strong that even he was forced to retreat. Looking at the two of them fighting, Xian Yuan hated herself for not being able to do anything. She wanted to help Ding Meng, but she couldn't even look at him, let alone get close to him. In the middle of the sacred lake, two huge forces, one white and one black, collided. The destructive power was like the end of the world. "Hang in there, Ding Meng," Xian Yuan shouted anxiously. "If you die, everyone will die with you. Your wives will become his food. Even the sacred lake will be taken by him." This sentence reminded Ding Meng. Although he had never faced an opponent as terrifying as the demonic fish, hadn't he been struggling to survive all this time? "Ah!" Ding Meng raised his head and roared. All 10 origins had been activated. Now, he was pushing the butt of the spear forward with difficulty. "Bastard!" The demonic fish was furious. "You still have energy to use." Chapter 767. Bang! 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 For muffled sounds rang out as the 4 eyeballs on the demonic fish's head exploded. The demon's spear had become somewhat translucent, while the divine light spear had regained its brilliance. Ding Meng had once again gained the upper hand. The cave could no longer be seen. Countless waves of energy had already destroyed the walls, leaving only the sacred lake and the bridge in the center. "If I want you to die, you'll die." The demonic fish once again let out an earth-shattering roar. His entire body transformed into a thick cloud of smoke that merged with the spear. He had truly become one with the spear. The spear instantly thickened by 10 meters and began to chip away at the divine light spear. At the same time, a visible stream of black energy flowed along the spear toward Ding Meng. This was a desperate attempt to kill Ding Meng, even if it meant risking everything. This was also a contest of strength. Whoever couldn't hold on first would be the one to fall. Seeing the demon's energy surge toward him, Ding Meng could no longer care about the intense pain from his body. He pushed his 10 origin points to their limits, opened up the smelting space, and poured all of his essence into the spear. In truth, he was also putting his life on the line. After this attack, whether he lived or died was up to the heavens. If the heavens wanted him to die here, then there was nothing he could do. After all, he had already done his best. The divine light spear thickened again until it was as thick as a river. The black stream of energy was quickly forced back. The 2 spears were locked in a stalemate in the air, but neither side was willing to let go. The demonic fish's voice came from a spear. "Give up. You're no match for me." Ding Meng's expression was pained. He closed his eyes as he poured energy into the spear. He was also instinctively cheering himself on. The mission of us origin ability users is to fight for those who can't fight. We humans will never give up. The demonic fish gritted his teeth. "You'll only get yourself killed if you continue to resist like this." Ding Meng also gritted his teeth. "Even if I'm going to die, you'll be buried with me in hell. the two of them would rather die than surrender. Today, either you die, or we die together. At this time, Xian Yuan suddenly knelt down devoutly and kowtowed to the light screen of the holy lake. He also muttered some words that others couldn't understand. It seemed like a spell, but his tone was very solemn. "You low-level trash creature, what do you want to do?" The demonic fish's voice was trembling. Ding Ming also noticed that Xian Yuan was leading Do Yun towards the super bridge step by step. There was a determined look on his face. At this instant, Ding Ming was enlightened. This immortal elemental energy and Do Yun wanted to use their immortal aperture bodies as a sacrifice to the sacred lake to activate what was about to be formed. The reason for this was very simple. The three forces in the sacred lake had been fluctuating. Originally, the demonic clan was the weakest because it was suppressed by the divine light singularity and the demon's black spot. However, Ding Ming and the demonic fish were fighting to the death and had no time to care about other things. If she sacrificed the sacred lake, the demonic clan's power would likely break through the ground. When that time came, it would be very beneficial to Ding Ming. "You're committing suicide," Ding Ming also exclaimed. Xian Yuan suddenly smiled at him. "Little friend Ding Ming, I'm already very grateful to you for saving me. If you die, I won't be able to escape this calamity. Let me repay you. Not everyone in the devouring world is bloodthirsty and warlike. You should know that we're also humans. The biggest difference between us humans and demons is that we pay attention to benevolence, righteousness, etiquette, and trust. Please remember, I'm a devouring world's Queen Xian Yuan, and I'm Ding Ming's close friend." Ding Ming was speechless. There were too many emotions in his heart that he couldn't describe. He had been hiding all this time, and those who chased after him were his own kind. On the contrary, this devouring world monster treated him as a friend and trusted him unconditionally. In the end, he even gave him a hand. Although there were pros and cons in this, at this moment, if Xian Yuan was any other human origin ability user, who would dare to walk straight into the black sea of poisonous clouds on the bridge? Xian Yuan seemed to know what he was thinking and couldn't help but smile. "Ding Ming, after I leave, please succeed me as the Sacred Clan's clan master and support my Xian sect. I know you'll agree because you're a man of your word." As she spoke, she took a step forward. A poisonous cloud swept across the bridge, and Xian Yuan's body immediately dimmed a lot, as if it was being disintegrated. However, her will was still there, and her broken body still walked forward unswervingly. At this moment, the poison in the sacred lake seemed to be infected by her determination. It was like flames raging everywhere, and Xian Yuan's body actually turned into 7 colors. Another large poisonous wave surged, and the devouring world's queen completely disappeared from the bridge. Ding Ming was furious and turned his head to look at the demonic fish. "You're the one who deserves to die." In a state of rage, he exerted strength in his palm again, and even his palm was trembling. Although he was an arrow at the end of its flight, the demon's spear was forced back again. The air around the spear, which was dozens of meters long, was exploding. Woo! A strange sound rang out in the cave, as if it was the howling of a female ghost. The demonic fish's expression changed. It was as if he had seen something he shouldn't have seen. Ding Ming was going all out and had no time to pay attention to the changes in the sacred lake. All he could see was the demonic fish's ugly ghost face, which was lit up by colorful lights. These lights were obviously emitted by the sacred lake, but the demonic fish's ghost face was already distorted. The sacred lake must have undergone a complete transformation. The sacrifice of Xian Yuan had played a decisive role. At this moment, Ding Ming and the demonic fish both felt an extremely terrifying aura being born. It was the aura of the devouring demon race's poison. If one could describe it, it was as if a sleeping giant had just woken up at this moment. The tyrannical power of this demonic chi was simply earth-shattering. Ding Ming realized that even if he was in his peak state, he could not compare to it. Then, Ding Ming felt the demonic chi behind him again. For the first time, he realized that the demonic chi could be as warm and intoxicating as the breeze in spring. His body felt as if it had been cleansed by the sun and rain at the same time. Ding Ming immediately reacted. This was the energy of a powerful demon race entering his body. He was immediately invigorated. He pushed the handle of the spear with both hands and shouted, "You beast, go to hell." After that, the spear of divine light finally turned into a super torrent. In the blink of an eye, it drowned the black spear of the demons. And this time, the black spear was disintegrating visible to the naked eye. It was like a towering ancient tree being struck by a strong lightning bolt. It cracked and shattered until nothing was left. This super torrent, which was a mixture of the god race and the demon race, crashed into the demonic fish's face without any suspense. The demonic fish instinctively used his scales to resist, but it was of no use. When a flood passed through, even a dam would not be able to escape, let alone his small scales. The moment he raised them, they were torn into nothingness like pieces of paper. Bang! The ring of the spear of divine light accurately hit the demonic fish's face. The demonic fish's body immediately exploded. At the same time, under the influence of divine light technology, the demonic fish turned into a spinning white circular mirror. This time, even Ding Ming's horizons were broadened. Different scenes and images were rapidly changing in the mirror. There were some he had seen before, and some he had never seen before. Other than the Holy Grail Federation, the Norse Empire, and the Fertile Chaw Galaxy, there were many strange creatures and scenes in the universe, especially some rare beasts. They now only had one expression, and that was that they were struggling, howling, and crying for help. Ding Ming seemed to have understood something. Could these monsters be the demon's parasites that had lived on the demonic fish for a long time in the universe? In the end, the image rotated until it was an ugly face of a demon. This face was like a red-hot soldering iron rolling across a human's face. It was like a clumsy and demonic mask. The mask actually spoke, and its tone was full of resentment. "You dare to touch my spirit body? The Lord will not let you off easily. Once he captures you alive, he will make you a slave for all eternity. You will never be able to rise again. Then call your Lord and try." Ding Ming's claws rotated, and then he fiercely clenched them. The grimace mask finally let out a cry of extreme pain. "Beast, you beast, you beast." With a whoosh, the mirror shrank to a point, and then this point disappeared without a trace. Ding Ming waved his hand again, and the spear of divine light also shrank. It whooshed back into his face and turned back into a mark. Ding Ming's body heat finally returned to normal. The cave returned to silence. The energy of the demons had completely disappeared, including the demonic fish's spirit body. Everything had been annihilated. Ding Ming heaved a long sigh of relief, and then he coughed violently. What he coughed up was pure white blood. This battle was really too difficult. He did not expect the real demons to be so difficult to deal with. This demonic fish warrior, who had possessed the body of a widow, was not just a little bit stronger. If it were not for the help of the devouring world's demons, it was hard to say who would have won this battle. Only then did Ding Ming remember the sacred lake behind him. He slowly turned around and found that the sacred lake had become colorful and emitted a soft and gentle aura. Above the sacred lake, Xian Yuan's real body floated in the air, surrounded by the colorful aura. Xian Yuan looked like a newly ascended queen. Ding Ming said in surprise, "You're still alive?" Xian Yuan said, "She's dead, but also not dead." This voice was very mechanical and felt like the electronic sound of a starship, but it was definitely not Xian Yuan's voice. "Who are you?" Ding Ming suddenly felt a little nervous. Xian Yuan looked straight at him. "I am them, and they are me. We are of the same bloodline, and we are one." This was very difficult to understand. Fortunately, the other was already explaining. "If you must know, I can also tell you that I am a real demon." Ding Ming seemed to realize something. "You're the legendary big shot of the demon clan?" Xian Yuan's face seemed to have a hint of a smile. "Oh, the devouring world's demons. Is that what they call me?" Ding Ming sighed. "It seems that the legends are true. You are a pure demon. Xian Yuan shook her head. You are wrong again. Although I am a pure demon, I'm only a remnant of a soul. You can call me Dark Knight Demoness. Dark Knight Demoness. Ding Ming was even more surprised. Black Butterfly Demon Queen, Nine Netherworld Demoness, Dark Knight Demoness. These names seemed to come from the same bloodline. Dark Knight Demoness was also surprised. I did not expect you to have been to Extreme Flame Planet. Ding Ming was instantly stunned. Could it be that you know the Black Butterfly Demon Empress? Chapter 768. Looks like you've been to the Extreme Flame Planet. Dark Knight Demoness nodded. And you met my sister. Ding Ming suddenly realized. You're from the Flame Butterfly race? Dark Knight Demoness shook her head. I'm from the same bloodline as the Demon Queen, but we're not from the same race. Her race is different from ours. Ding Ming asked curiously, what's the difference? Dark Knight Demoness said in a low voice, actually, before the Holy Grail Federation was born, I already existed. Many years ago, the widow of the Mao Xing civilization came to this main star system. My race was blessed by Xinguang technology. In order to protect the Star General's retreat, my race was tortured by the demons. In that battle, my heavenly book body was destroyed, and only a trace of my consciousness was left behind to guard this palace. That general was the imprint mirror image that you just displayed. I have a very deep impression of him. Ding Ming listened quietly. He didn't expect the devouring world to be related to the Mao Xing civilization. Dark Knight Demoness continued. Before I left, the prophet of Xinguang technology predicted that many years later, 2 chosen ones would come here to help me get out. Ding Ming thought to himself, weren't these 2 chosen ones him and Ding Ming Ling? Dark Knight Demoness continued. But the demon's general also left a message. Their prophet also predicted that if the chosen ones came to the palace, there's a high chance that they'll take me under the demon's command. Ding Ming pondered and said, can I understand it this way? In the process of injecting energy into the sacred lake, 3 different races were competing. If one of them won, then that race could transform you into their race. The Dark Knight Enchantress said, your understanding is wrong, but the meaning is very close. The reason I'm hiding in the palace is to wait for the day of my rebirth, just like how you saved Xian Yuan King. However, I'm still a monster, so it's most suitable for me to be reborn in the form of a monster. If the power of the celestial race and the demons controlled me, I would either become a divine light martial artist or a thunderscale demonic fish. However, the power of the celestial race and my race are in great conflict. Although the power of the demons can be used, it's too negative and violent. It's not an ideal power. Ding Ming sighed. No wonder the demonic fish tried so hard to control this place. Dark Knight Enchantress said, actually, he can't control me. Ding Ming asked why. Dark Knight Demoness said, it's very simple. It's impossible for him to sacrifice himself to inject energy into the sacred lake. You have to know that the conditions for my rebirth are very complicated. At the very least, I need a huge amount of energy. Moreover, I need at least 6 complete immortal apertures to have a chance of recovering the heavenly book body. Ding Ming calculated carefully. According to the order in which they were thrown into the bridge, they were Qing Yi, Luo Zi, by Lai Shan, Yuan Lai, Xian Yuan, Do Yun. That's not right. There are only 6 of them, and Yuan Lai is an origin energy user. He can't cultivate immortal apertures. Ding Ming raised his doubts. In fact, there are only 5 people who sacrifice themselves. Dark Knight Enchantress shook her head and said, you don't know, but other than Xian Yuan Queen and the other 4, there was another person who sacrificed himself here many years ago. Ding Ming was even more surprised. Someone else came here before? Dark Knight Enchantress said seriously. The first queen of the devouring world, Ren Qing, came here before, and the devouring world was born because of her. She was originally a human member of the Holy Grail Federation, but she was harmed by evil people and was abandoned in the devouring world. However, this queen was extremely talented, and she survived with her tenacious will and extraordinary talent. She created the devouring world's Shemale clan. Unfortunately, Queen Rin Qing was persecuted when she was alive, and her murderous aura was too strong. She relied on her extraordinary strength to kill human origin energy users everywhere in the Federation, angering the human world. Many years ago, the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire worked together to set up a trap, and they secretly sent a large fleet and experts to besiege her. Unfortunately, she was defeated. Ding Ming was extremely shocked. Even Xian Yuan Lung Yin and the others didn't know about this, right? Dark Knight Enchantress said she was severely injured in that battle. In order to find a way to recover, she accidentally learned about me and came to the Flame Star Palace. Unfortunately, she came too late. When she arrived, she was already on the verge of collapse. Even if I was reborn, I couldn't heal her. Under my persuasion, she sacrificed the holy lake and merged with me. This time, Ding Ming finally understood. I understand now. You're the remnant consciousness of Dark Knight Enchantress, but you've absorbed so many immortal apertures. You're actually the combination of Rin Qing, Xian Yuan, and Do Yun. Dark Knight Enchantress nodded and said, "That's right. They sacrificed their energy and immortal apertures so that I could reforge the heavenly book body. Naturally, I've also inherited their memories and wishes. Naturally, I'll fulfill their wishes." As she spoke, she changed her appearance. Ding Ming was amazed. Dark Knight Enchantress kept changing into Xian Yuan, Luo Zi, Do Yun, and the others. That Ren Qing queen was the strangest. She was clearly a pretty girl from the human race. It was simply impossible to connect her with the image of a cruel and ruthless queen. Ding Ming was stunned again. This was not good. From what he knew, that Ren Qing queen was a war maniac. Luo Zi and the others weren't good people either. Do Yun and Bai Laishan were slightly better. Only Xian Yuan advocated peace. With so many people combining into one person, who knew what this Dark Knight Enchantress was going to do? Perhaps, if it was light, she would kill people for revenge. If it was heavy, she would start a war. At that time, corpses would be piled up like mountains and rivers of blood would flow. Dark Knight Demonis seemed to know what he was worried about. She took the initiative to explain, "You don't have to worry too much. Although I have inherited the memories and wishes of these people, as the master of the devouring world, I have to consider the overall situation and long-term interests. The devouring world is plagued by internal and external threats. Not to mention the Saint Brilliance Federation. The Frogmen have been coveting this place for many years, and the Empire is also a force that cannot be ignored. After so many years, the world situation has completely changed. A few years ago, the Steel Mane Empire emerged. Now, there are many experts in the world of origin ability users, and the true Martial Clan is also full of talents." Ding Ming smiled bitterly and said, "That has nothing to do with me. It's also not something that I could decide." Dark Knight Enchantress said seriously, "But you're a warrior of divine light. You've inherited the relics of the Mao Xing civilization. These years, the grudges between the Divine Demon Clan have gradually changed from secret battles to open battles. You have a lot of enemies." Ding Ming could only smile bitterly. He had a lot of enemies. Xinghao Xinghong had been completely offended by him, and this was only on the surface. In private, there were also organizations like the Black Handprint and the Hidden Front. This was because now it was basically certain that the Fifth Lord's forces were definitely related to the demons. The Hidden Front's forces were even more involved, even involving the Norse Empire and the Frogmen. Dark Knight Enchantress said lightly, "Back then, I was indebted to the Mao Xing civilization. Now that I've helped you defeat the enemy, we're even. But now, this is no longer a place where you can stay. You have to leave immediately." She suddenly waved her hand, and Ding Ming only felt the scene in front of him change. When he looked carefully, he realized that he had actually returned to the canyon camp above ground. He was standing under the sacred tree. Dark Knight Enchantress also followed up and said lightly, "According to the immortal Yuan Queen's intentions, you don't want to give up on your wives." Ding Ming turned his head and saw Lan Bing and the others lying on the ground. They seemed to still be unconscious. Even Fong Yihui who had been injured in the tunnel, had been teleported up in an instant. Ding Ming only just realized that this Dark Knight enchantress of the Yao clan was so powerful that he couldn't even see through her teleportation technique. It seemed that the path of a warrior was still very long. Just increasing his origin energy was useless. At this moment, Ding Ming's attitude became humble. "Thank you, Senior." Dark Knight Enchantress waved her hand and said, "You don't have to thank me. That Thunderscale demonic fish didn't come alone. It has companions in the nearby star field. But you don't have to worry about this place anymore. I have a plan to deal with it, but this is definitely not a place where you can stay for long. The Devouring Realm isn't hostile to you, but also doesn't welcome you. In the future, when we meet again, we'll definitely be strangers. It's hard to say whether we'll be friends or enemies." She slowly raised her left hand, and a 7-colored halo spread out from her palm. Ding Ming immediately felt that the withered sacred tree behind him had suddenly regained its vitality. Only someone like him, who had been in contact with sacred trees since he was a child, would have this kind of feeling. He turned around, and sure enough, the sacred tree dropped those white seeds of light that gathered toward him little by little. Dark Knight Enchantress explained, "This sacred tree is actually a product of Mao Xing's civilization. Back then, Mao Xing's widow and warriors had set up sacred trees like this in many places in this main star system. The purpose was to facilitate long-distance teleportation. You should be familiar with this product." Ding Ming was familiar with it, but he didn't know how to actually use it. At this moment, countless white dots gathered together, forming a huge 5-colored energy eye in the open space. Ding Ming had seen this teleportation array before. Back then, the princess had used it to travel from the Wei dynasty to the Devouring Realm. Dark Knight Enchantress said, "Take your people and go in. With my power, I can only send you to the nearest sacred tree." Ding Ming nodded. He waved one hand, and Lan Bing and the group of women were all sent into the teleportation array. After thinking about it, Ding Ming also sent Feng Yihui, who was seriously injured and unconscious, into the teleportation array. This person wasn't good or bad, but he shouldn't be abandoned here. If Ding Ming didn't care about him, then he would most likely die. Dark Knight Enchantress said, "Before we leave, I have a piece of advice." Ding Ming lowered his head and said, "Senior, please speak." Dark Knight Enchantress said, "One thought to become a god, another to become a demon. This is understandable, but in the end, you will realize that gods are demons, and demons are gods. Gods and demons are one family. This is the origin of the shifters, and also one of the laws of this universe." Ding Ming didn't understand this kind of words, but he believed that Dark Knight Enchantress had her reasons. "Go." Dark Knight Enchantress waved her hand and said, "I hope that the next time you see the Devouring Realm clan, try not to be enemies with them." Chapter 769. Ding Ming was very familiar with the interior of the teleportation formation. It was a world of colorful light. The energy provided by the holy tree was very warm, as if one was surrounded by warm water. There was an indescribable sense of pleasure. Under the cleansing of this wonderful energy, one would slowly fall asleep. Ding Ming was familiar with this feeling. He did not enter the space of consciousness and let the tiredness hit him. He, who had not really slept for many years, slowly fell asleep on top of the girls. After an unknown amount of time, Ding Ming felt a gentle breeze brushing past his face. Only then did he open his eyes. What entered his eyes was a lush blue-green forest. He was lying in the middle of the forest. Beside him was a towering tree. This was undoubtedly a grand-scale Mao Xing sacred tree. After carefully observing the surroundings, Ding Ming revealed a smile that he hadn't seen in a long time. He had been here before, and when he left, he had said that he would return one day. Now that he had come back alive, he felt as if he had returned to his hometown. This was the Pandora Star System's V4 poison barrier. Back then, he had helped Meng Yin, Shui Yin, and Rin Tianlan to remove the poison. He did not expect the Dark Knight Demoness to be so powerful. From the Flame Star in the hinterland of the Devouring Realm, she had teleported him to the southern outer space of the Holy Grail Federation. This was a real interstellar journey. However, Ding Ming could not be envious of her ability. After he got up, he decisively woke everyone up. As soon as the girls woke up, they were immediately surprised, especially Isendale. She still did not know what had happened. Pandora Star Systems V4. Lombing was also surprised. You defeated that widow. Ding Ming smiled. Anyway, we are safe now. The girls were overjoyed, especially Junling and Lu Qing. Their biggest wish was to leave the Dark Flame Star. At least now, they could see natural light, and that was enough. Don't activate your wristbands yet, Ding Ming said to Isendale. The Federation's Southern Great Wall Patrol fleet had a chance of discovering this place. Ding Ming was now a wanted criminal, and it would be bad if their location was exposed. Both Ding Ming and Ding Ming were now seriously injured. If Shenghao Xinhong's fighters came, they would be in big trouble. Ding Ming did not wake Feng Yihui up. Instead, he led the group to the campsite behind the clearing. If he remembered correctly, the divine aerospace ship was docked in the depths of the forest. However, he was soon disappointed. Little Rascal, Xinjie, and the others were not here. The divine aerospace ship had also disappeared. It seemed that they had moved ahead of time. After entering the plant room, where Xuyin had lived, Ding Ming found that all the facilities in the command center had been removed. Little Rascal and the others probably knew about their situation and left Planet V4 for safety reasons. However, after scanning for a long time, Ding Ming still found a small old metal box in the corner. The box had an inconspicuous green leafy grass logo printed on it. He could not help but smile. They still left a clue. They knew I would come back and were afraid I would not be able to contact them. Junling asked curiously, "What kind of signal is this?" Ding Ming smiled. "This is the logo of a grassroots empire. If it were anyone else, they would not be able to recognize this logo, but Ding Ming knew at a glance that it was definitely left behind by Xinjie. After the photon computer was turned on, there was no signal link. Instead, large chunks of data and code appeared automatically. Not long after, there was a whooshing sound outside. Running out of the house to take a look, Ding Ming saw a long-distance transmission array being formed. Ding Ming smiled. I knew that with Xinjie's cautiousness, he would leave a way out. Take the AI, and let's go. Junling asked, "What about Feng Yihui? Do we still care about him?" Isendale shook her head. "I don't think so. His wristband is the military's enhanced model. When he wakes up, he can directly contact the patrol fleet at the Great Wall in the south." Everyone once again entered the Chu-Ing teleportation portal. After about 3 to 5 minutes of white energy flashing, everyone's eyes lit up. They found themselves on a vast helipad. Parked beside them was the mighty and domineering divine aerospace ship. 2 people stood under the spaceship's connecting cabin. When they saw Ding Ming, Jintai and Sweet Fruit could not help but cheer. "It's Brother Ding Ming. Brother Ding Ming is back. Brother Ding Ming is back. Brother Ding Ming is back." A lazy voice came from inside the connecting cabin. "I knew this kid would be able to find the photon computer I left behind." Hearing this familiar voice, Ding Ming couldn't help but quickly step forward. Xinjie's unruly face appeared in front of her. "Big sis, I've already said that this brat can't be killed. Do you believe me now?" Behind Xinjie, Ding Wenhe slowly walked out. When she saw Ding Ming, she also revealed a smile. Ding Wenhe let out a long sigh. "Ding Ming, you've been gone for 3 years. Thank the heavens you've come back alive." 3 years? Ding Ming was a little surprised. He remembered that only a year had passed. Could it be that the Dark Knight Demonis had used the holy tree's teleportation to take so much time? "It's good that you're back. Let's go in and talk," Ding Wenhe said. "You've gained a lot from your trip to the Fertile Chalk system." Xinjie looked at the group of women behind Ding Ming. He had seen Junling, Lu Qing, and Su Linghua before. He had also heard of Lan Bing, but Isendale was an outsider. However, Xinjie's eyes had always been sharp. He could tell at a glance that these women had a close relationship with Ding Ming. He could not help but put an arm around Ding Ming's shoulder. "Kid, you're almost an idiot. I didn't expect you to have such good taste in women. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. This is called ugly people have their own advantages. Someone as handsome as you is still single. Xing laughed. I'm so handsome that normal women don't even dare to get close. You've worked hard these past few years. How about it? Do you want a steak? Ding Ming's eyes lit up. There's food on the ship? Xing smiled. There's been food for a long time. Sister Yin brought a lot of daily necessities from the dragon slaying group. Ding Ming did not even turn his head. Let's go. Take me to eat. Once they entered the spaceship, the cold command hall quickly welcomed a long-awaited liveliness. First, Little Rascal and Xiao AI came out of the sensor cabin. Ding Ming, you're finally willing to come back. Huh? You have so many girlfriends? Let me take a good look. Little Rascal's appearance had not changed much, but his personality was still as weird as ever. Xiao AI's height had obviously increased, and the cold aura around her was more obvious. When she saw Ding Ming, she just nodded slightly. Ding Ming, you're back just in time. Let me show you my speed. Ding Ming could not help but be shocked. Xiao AI's entire body gave off the aura of a high-level combat lord, and this aura was so pure that even he could not compare to it. This was the real Mao Xing Xingguang technology. It seemed that Little Rascal and Xiao AI had improved by leaps and bounds while he was away. Aside from Little Rascal and Xiao AI, Dai Yi, Ming Yin, Su Xia, and Liang Yi were also there. When they saw their long-lost friends, Liang Yi, Lu Qing, and the others immediately made a scene. They hugged each other, crying and laughing. Everyone had come all the way here from the God War Starfield. The Sisters of the Water Sakura Association were finally reunited. When Dai Yi saw Ding Ming, she wanted to go up and hug him, but she suddenly saw Lan Bing and Isendale behind Ding Ming. As a sensitive woman, she immediately restrained this impulse. At this moment, everyone's positions were very subtle. Lan Bing and Ming Yin were the closest, so they naturally went to the resting area to chat. Little Rascal had always approved of Dai Yi, so he naturally went to Ding Ming's side. Dai Yi took the initiative to hold Ding Ming's arm. Isendale's eyelids also drooped. You must be Miss Dai, right? Dai Yi was very polite. I haven't asked for your name yet. Isendale said, I must be your elder sister. You could just call me Sister AI. Dai Yi was a little unnatural. This surname is very rare. Aaron also has this surname. Isendale said decisively. Aaron? Which Aaron? The Aaron from the Rainbow Gold Group in Blue Pole Star City? Dai Yi was stunned. You know her, Isendale said. Is her father called AI Huasheng? Dai Yi was stunned. Yes, you, Isendale smiled. AI Huasheng is my distant cousin. It seems that I'm one generation older than you. You should call me Andy. Dai Yi was surprised. It can't be that coincidental, right? The group of women quickly chatted. Ding Ming and Little Rascal Xin Jia came to the workbench. Only then did Ding Ming establish a psychic model and transmit everything that had happened during this period of time to them. She then reached out to summon the divine light singularity, took out the suitcase-shaped crystal carrier matrix, and solemnly handed it to Little Rascal. Little Rascal caressed the suitcase and couldn't help but feel sad. His name is Rong Xing. He was the great general of the Mao Xing dynasty. He taught me in Xiao AI cultivation when we were young. When we evacuated, he risked his life to protect me. I didn't expect him to be dead. Ding Ming sighed. Without him, I would have been killed by Ling Xingqi on Planet Poison Dragon. Xiao AI said, Fortunately, he passed his legacy to you. With this suitcase of hard-earned energy, we can repair the spaceship and have the confidence to deal with the black handprint. Ding Ming frowned. Did the black handprint cause trouble for you while I was away? Xin Jia smiled bitterly. They didn't cause trouble for them, but they kept causing trouble for me. This organization can't be underestimated. They have a lot of experts in the field of red guests. Ding Ming asked, Where are we now? Xin Jia said, This is Pandora V12. The people of the Federation can't find this place for now, so it's relatively safe. The meaning of his words was clear. It was almost impossible for them to return to the Holy Grail Federation. At the very least, Ding Ming and Lan Bing couldn't go back. It would be difficult for the others to enter without identity. Only Meng Yin and Eisenale could go. Ding Ming pondered and said, "I want to go to the Norse Empire." Little Rascal knew what he was thinking. He was still brooding over Zhao Yu's death. As his student, Ding Ming had to find out the reason behind it. Xinggs said, "It's more appropriate to go to the Norse Empire. This place is relatively close to the Norse Empire, so it won't be hard to get you there. Plus, you're a citizen of the Norse Empire and a member of the military." Little Rascal said, "Let's talk about it after you've recovered. There are probably a lot of people looking for you right now. It's good to lie low for a while. Besides, it'll take a long time for us to repair the spaceship." Chapter 770. Planet V12's camp was actually similar to KV-303's refugee camp, but this place was peaceful and quiet. The huge helipad looked large, but in fact, the surrounding forest was covered by a large number of poisonous metal barriers. Space radars couldn't scan this place. After Xinggs told him about it, Ding Ming now had a general understanding of the situation outside. First of all, he had always been concerned about planet KV-303. Captain Silman and the others were still living well. No hostile forces harassed them. This was all thanks to the protection of the Dragon-Slaying Warrior Corps and the Surprise Assault Corps. To a certain extent, Meng Yin and the commander had relieved him of his worries. The bad news was what had happened on Planet Thousand Sails. Ding Ming was now listed as a rank A wanted criminal by the Federation and was claimed to be related to the Devouring World. The news had been released, but the military did not seem to take any action. The Shenghao and Xinghong families also did not follow up. Of course, the main reason was that they did not know Ding Ming's whereabouts. The hackers of the Black Handprint organization were very active on the International Space Network and the Darknet. Xinggs had occasionally fought with them a few times. These hackers were also considered top talents. The only thing Xinggs could guarantee was that his position would not be exposed. As for the camp on Planet V12, other than Little Rascal and the others, Jean Tai and the others were responsible for the daily maintenance. Meng Yin and the commander would occasionally come. Recently, Four Eyes and Mao Zi were responsible for bringing Yao Manru over from the refugee camp. The Divine Arrow spaceship was a product of Mao Xing technology, and its maintenance was very energy-consuming. Little Rascal advocated temporarily using the poisonous metal of Planet V12 to maintain the camp's operation. This was not a matter for one person. It required talents and experts in many fields. Yao Manru and Ding Wenhe were naturally the first candidates. However, other than them and Jean Tai, the camp was actually still lacking manpower. In other words, this camp was now Ding Ming's own base. Like the outer space forces, if they wanted to grow, they had to absorb all kinds of talents. Of course, what they lacked the most right now was martial talents. Not to mention Ding Ming, Xiao AI had already become a high-level battlelord. Dai, he had also become a mid-level battlelord. Lan Bing had already become a battle saint. Eisenale was already a battle god, and Meng Yin, Su Xia, and the others were not weak either. Liang Yi, Lu Qing, and the others now had the divine light energy. So what they had to do was to obediently stay in the sensing cabin and wait for their advancement. At this moment, a group of people was strolling in the square. Ding Ming took the initiative to speak. "Little Rascal, this time I went from Planet Beidou to the Devouring Realm, and I finally saw how powerful the real demons are." Little Rascal sighed. "I didn't tell you before because you were still weak. Facing such a powerful opponent might cause your confidence to crumble." Ding Ming said, "That shouldn't be the case, right?" Little Rascal said, "That's not it. You mustn't underestimate the demons. The demons have a history of 10 billion years of evolution. In fact, our Mao Xing civilization and the demons are of the same family. We are very high-level life forms in the universe, but a long time ago, we split into two races. The Protoss civilization worships holy and beautiful things and uses them to survive. The Protoss are very intelligent and are good at modification and creation. The demons are the complete opposite. They worship slaughter. In the higher dimensions of the universe, they rely on killing, plundering, and sucking all kinds of negative emotions to survive. The demons are very good at magic and witchcraft. Magic and witchcraft really exist? Ding Ming couldn't help but be curious. Little Rascal nodded affirmatively. Of course there are. The wonders of the universe are only things that we can't think of. There's nothing that we can't see. An electromagnetic type origin energy user like Miss Liang is actually a prototype of magic. The typical natural phenomena of wind, fire, lightning, and light are the origin of magic, right? It's just that the human world doesn't have the ability to explore the higher dimensions yet. Ding Ming nodded and said, I've learned a lot. Little Rascal said, that's a bit off topic. I know what you want to ask. Ding Ming smiled and said, Little Rascal said seriously, the secret of the Holy Temple map is something that even I only heard about when I was young. Rumor has it that the Mao Xing civilization has been guarding a place called the Silent Entropy Land for generations, which is what we call the Holy Temple. I heard from the previous generation that our Mao Xing civilization's Shengguang technology was passed down from the Holy Temple. As for what secrets the Holy Temple actually holds, I don't know. Ding Ming said, could it be that the demons came for the Holy Temple? Little Rascal nodded. When the Mao Xing civilization was destroyed, the king took out the Silent Entropy land map from the treasury. Only then did I know that the legend of the Holy Temple map was true. Ding Ming said, but the Holy Temple map is divided into 10 parts. Little Rascal said, it was carried by the 10 retreating great generals. We were teleported to this main star system and scattered everywhere to prevent the demons from pursuing us. As you all know, we're scattered in the Holy Grail Federation, the Norse Empire, the God War Starfield, and the Fertile Chalk system. Ding Ming said, but now we've found all 10 parts of the Holy Temple map. Little Rascal smiled bitterly. Do you think we can open it just because we have all of them? Ding Ming was stunned. Can't we? Little Rascal said. That's what I want to tell you. The Holy Temple map works on the same principle as the Diamond Astral Art. Are you in a hurry to cultivate the 11th origin? Ding Ming was overjoyed. Yes. If I can cultivate the 11th origin, it won't be so difficult to deal with the widow this time. Little Rascal said slowly, I'll be honest with you. Even I don't know how to construct the first origin. Ding Ming was stunned. Huh? Little Rascal turned around and said, Xiao AI, why don't you tell him? Xiao AI walked up from behind. Ding Ming, do you still remember when you constructed the 8th origin at the Starbao Corporation? That origin was constructed based on your emotions, memories, and will. It has already changed the overall direction of our original plan. Everything has become unknown and infinite. Ding Ming said hesitantly. You mean Xiao AI nodded. That's right. Everything has changed. We can't predict it, but we can be sure that the 11th origin exists. If you can't cultivate it, there are many factors. Either you're not strong enough, the method is wrong, the time isn't right, or the conditions aren't right. Ding Ming sighed. I get it. It requires coincidence, right? Xiao AI said, that's right. Think about it. Starting from Black Gold Base, Thorn Planet, Madison Planet, Rainbow Planet, and Poison Dragon Planet. Aren't these all coincidences? Little Rascal explained. Actually, the Holy Temple map is the same. It requires coincidence. I'll be bold to say that even if the demon's champion snatched the map away, they would still be confused. So what you need to do is to work hard to improve your cultivation. Only when you're strong enough will the level of things you come into contact with increase correspondingly. The information you learn will help you make better judgments. It's the same for us. All right. Ding Ming felt a little helpless. But if he really wanted to continue cultivating, he really didn't know what to cultivate. Xiao AI seemed to know that he was at a bottleneck. She raised her right hand. Watch carefully. A glowing white energy shot out from Xiao AI's palm. The energy condensed and did not dissipate. Slowly, it formed a curved dagger that looked like an enlarged version of a T-shaped claw knife. Its entire body was in a strange arc. Ding Ming was surprised. This is Xiao AI rose into the air and hovered in midair. Then, her entire body flickered in and out of existence. Her bearing was different, and her charm was even more varied. Several strong beams of light flowed between them. This scene was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. It was intoxicating. This was only a short moment. Xiao AI descended again and retracted her energy. She said calmly, "You should have seen this move before." Ding Ming had indeed seen it before. Back then, on the battle platform of the Celestial Heaven's Gate in the Great Wei Dynasty, Long Yao and Yu Xingyang had used this move. However, at that time, Ding Ming wasn't even an origin energy cultivator. He could only see a large ball of white light. He didn't even dare to open his eyes to take a closer look. He simply couldn't withstand the fluctuations in aura, so he could only lie down and hold his head from afar. Now, at last, he saw the essence of the saber. In this dazzling saber light and sword shadow, while you were still marveling at its brilliance, it would take your life. Xiao AI explained calmly. Before Lady Yu died, she specifically passed down this ancient sword technique to Big Sister When I was bored, I studied this set of sword techniques. Unfortunately, I still couldn't grasp the main points. As for the sword techniques passed down from the ancient times, we all recognize you as the one with the greatest comprehension ability. Whether or not you can master will depend on yourself. Ding Ming was immediately amused. Xiao AI, the Celestial Heaven's Gate, is an all-female sect. This sword technique is also a woman's sword technique. If I were to cultivate it, what would I look like if I were to cultivate it? Xiao AI was indifferent. That's your problem. The humans of the Norse Empire are actually a race of true martial artists. Many experts have studied the things passed down from the ancient times. If you want to go to the Norse Empire, I recommend that you practice all kinds of martial arts. It's not like the Federation. Just relying on your high origin energy index doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. All right, I'll do my best. Ding Ming was a bit depressed. After all this time, he was going to be taught a woman's sword technique. Little rascal advised, just focus on recovering. Don't feel like you're at a disadvantage. Look, Big Sister when he didn't even teach Misty the sword technique. She passed it down to you. Everyone is relying on you to survive. Farais and the Russian went to the commander to get you a starship. Take advantage of this time to recover. Ding Ming said, a starship to the Norse Empire? Little rascal stared at him with a half-smile. What? Judging from your expression, you want to bring your family with you? Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. What do you mean by family? Little rascal stretched out 2 fingers and rubbed them. Hee hee, Ding Ming, you're not being honest. That Eisendel looks pretty good. How was it? Did you succeed? Ding Ming said with a red face. I succeeded. Are you happy now? Little rascal couldn't help but laugh strangely. Haha, not bad. Keep up the good work. Your strength is not bad now. You need to continue expanding your girlfriend's camp. Ding Ming. Chapter 771. The general who worked for Ding Ming had always been efficient. Only 1 month later, the starship to the Norman Empire had landed on the square of the base shakily. The landing noise was particularly loud, and everyone could not help but run to the square to welcome it. Before Ding Ming could get off the spaceship, he heard a familiar voice from afar. Mother of Asterisker, I told you slow down, but you didn't listen. My starship was corroded a lot. Can you blame me for that? Wasn't this lousy boat given to us by the marshal for free? What do you do about it? F***CKU, sister. If you don't know how to drive, just say it. Give me a liquor wormda. I haven't smoked in a long time. You uncultured thing. You can't even recognize the brand of cigarette. It's called the Zhongjio, not liquor wormda. Are you kidding me? F***CK, my eyes are a little misty. F***CK off. You're doing this again. Needless to say, these 2 people were the 4-eyed man and the Russian. However, while the 2 of them were still fighting for the cigarettes, Ding Ming had already separated the crowd and walked up to them. Brother Ding. The 2 of them immediately became obedient and straightened their backs. Is this the starship? Ding Ming sized up the medium-sized carrier on the tarmac. The starship was provided by Marshall, but it did not have a military emblem. Moreover, the hull of the ship was very shabby and moss-like vegetation had been corroded in many places by the toxins. It was obviously caused when it was driven in. The four-eyed man drooped his head. "Brother Ding, this isn't it." "Oh." Ding Ming was surprised. "Then where's the starship you got?" The Russian quietly pointed to the back of the carrier and stammered, "It's that spaceship." Ding Ming took a closer look and almost fainted. Behind the carrier, there was an even more shabby, blazing shark spaceship. F***CK. This is the spaceship that will send me to the Empire? Seeing Ding Ming's cold face, the four-eyed man and the Russian didn't dare to speak or smoke. Fortunately, Xing came out in time to explain, just like last time, your identity is still a citizen of planet TT-12. You were wandering outside and met the Empire's patrol fleet. The fleet will drop you from the space station. If you want to investigate Professor Zhao's situation, you can't avoid the Christine Academy. Ding Ming realized what was going on after he said that. If he really wandered in the space zone of the Imperium in such a large unit as a medium-sized starship, it would inevitably raise suspicions. It was better to keep a low profile. When Ding Ming went out, everyone was always fighting to go with him. For example, Dai, he was the most enthusiastic. But this time, Dai, he sighed helplessly and said, "Sigh, Ding Ming, I really want to go with you, but unfortunately I can't." The reason was simple. She was a citizen of the Federation. Without a special entry permit, she was not allowed to enter the Empire. In fact, there were many people in her situation. Ding Ming, Lan Bing, Eisendel, and Ming Yin could not go. Ding Ming could only look at Junling. Junling helplessly shrugged and said, "Don't look at me, boss. I killed many of the Empire's soldiers in the Fertile Chalk system. You are a wanted criminal of the Federation, but I am a wanted criminal of the Empire." If Junling could not pass, then it was even more impossible for Lu Qing and the others. "Ding Ming, I can go with you." This time, it was Liang Yi who spoke, but Liang Yi's voice was like a water droplet. Ding Ming knew what the water droplet was planning. It wanted nothing more than to go and cause trouble so that it could devour energy and evolve. "Just stay here and help Miss Liang improve. Last time, we met so many elites on planet Poison Dragon, but I didn't see you devour many of them." Ding Ming waved his hand. What he meant was that Liang Yi's strength was not enough. Su Xia suddenly said, "Ding Ming, I may not be able to go with you. Although I am a citizen of the Empire, I am officially dead in the Empire's records. If you go to the Empire and have the time, give Bai Ming a good lesson. Give him a good beating." Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. Sister Su was good at everything, but she was vengeful, and that part was unbearable. Xing said meaningfully, "It seems that you will have to go alone this time." "No need, there's still us. We can go with Brother Ding. The girls in the Empire are very good. We can run errands for Brother Ding." The four-eyed man and the Russian rushed to raise their hands. Ding Ming said helplessly, "Forget it. The construction of the camp can't be done without you guys running errands. This time I will go alone." In fact, he had another plan. Other than going to Leaston Academy, he was going to visit Old Yu's family. Back then, he had left in a hurry, but he was grateful to Old Yu from the bottom of his heart. When he was at his most difficult time, Old Yu and his daughter had taken him in. Planet TT-12 was as quiet and beautiful as before. Large golden wheat fields swayed in the wind, and a clear river flowed through them. Even the air was filled with the fragrance of wood leaves. Ding Ming walked quietly by the riverside. His telekinesis vision had already spread out and covered the entire Qingxi village. He could see Old Yu's bungalow from afar. The house looked the same as before, but the outer layer of mud had decayed a lot. Even the wooden hut he used to live in was still there. There were even some chickens at the entrance of the hut. Unfortunately, Old Yu did not seem to be at home. Ding Ming moved his vision again and found Old Yu deep in a wheat field. Old Yu was still doing farm work. "Old Yu," Ding Ming called out softly from a distance. Old Yu, who was wearing a straw hat, put down his scythe and slowly turned around. Old Yu was indeed old. His hair was white, and his face was haggard. It seemed that even his reactions were slower. After a long time, he said in surprise, "Ding Ming?" Ding Ming smiled. "I'm back." Old Yu suddenly became excited. "It's really you, Ding Ming." You've been gone for more than 10 years. You're finally back." As he spoke, he walked out of the wheat field. It was obvious that his body had become much hunched, and his steps were especially unsteady. Oldie was an ordinary person, after all. More than 10 years had aged him. Ding Ming quickly went forward to support him. "Old you, why are you still working?" Old you wiped the sweat off his forehead and laughed heartily. "I've been working my whole life. I can't get used to stopping to rest." Ding Ming supported him back to the wooden house. The two of them sat down in the courtyard. Old Yu's enthusiasm was still the same as before. He brought over several plates of nuts for Ding Ming and even grabbed a few bottles of nutrient solution. Ding Ming smiled and waved his hand. "Old Yu, you're too kind. I've long since had no use for these things." Old Yu said in surprise. "Ding Ming, you've also become an origin ability user." Ding Ming nodded. "I've been that way for a long time. I just didn't have time to come back and see you." Old Yu said, "You child, you left very quickly back then. Xiao Man said that you left without a sound. The teachers at the academy said that you joined the army. Did you come back after completing your military service?" It seemed that the military had kept the news of Ding Ming's return to Black Gold Base very well. Old Yu and his daughter had always thought that Ding Ming had joined the army and gone to the front lines. Ding Ming did not know how to explain it, so he could only nod. "Yes, I retired this time. I came back just to see you." Old Yu's face was full of pride. For a family in the Empire, having an origin ability user serving the country was a supreme honor. "That's great. Ding Ming, you've come back alive. Many people have died at the front lines. Do you still remember Guardian Fred?" "Yes." Ding Ming also had a deep impression of that old man. Old Yu sighed. His eldest son died at the front lines of the fertile chalk star system a few years ago. His old friend was sad for half a year. Ding Ming's impression of planet TT-12 was also a memory from many years ago. He asked in confusion, "Is it really that chaotic now?" Old Yu sighed. "Ding Ming, you soldiers should know more about the front lines than we do. In the past few years, the conflict between the Empire and the Frogmen in the fertile chalk star system has become more and more intense. Some people say that war will break out sooner or later. The higher-ups have also increased the taxes. Even our place is being taxed." Ding Ming sighed secretly. He knew that farmers like Old Yu earned their hard-earned money. Now that the Empire's situation was tense, they actually had to impose heavy taxes on the countryside. He could not help but sigh. "So you're still working in your old age?" Old Yu smiled and shook his head. "That's not all. It's time for Xiao Man to get married. When the time comes, I'll have to go to the city, so I'll be a little busy during this time." Ding Ming asked curiously, "Where's Sister Man?" Old Yu said, "She's in Chiozei City." "Not bad." After Ding Ming left, Yu Man successfully graduated from Leaston Academy 2 years later. Although she had become an origin ability user, her talent was limited, so she did not choose to develop on the path of a warrior. Instead, she and her roommate, Zhuamin, joined the Chu family's Anvil Group branch in Chiozei City to work. This was also a promise that Chu Xiaoqing had made back then. Due to Chu Xiaoqing's outstanding performance in the fertile chalk star system, the Chu family was now the largest family on planet TT-12. Anvil Group was also a well-known company, and it was ranked among the top 100 companies in the Norse Empire. Yu Man worked as an assistant in a small department in the Chiozei City branch. After working for so many years, she met a staff member in Chiozei City's cultural and educational department. The two of them also fell in love with each other, and now they were talking about marriage. This is a good thing. Ding Ming could not help but feel emotional. This was the portrayal of an ordinary family in the Empire, and it was also the day he looked forward to the most. However, Old Yu's expression was not very natural. The financial resources and dowry are not cheap. Huh? Are the requirements high? Ding Ming actually knew about this. The marriage traditions of the Federation and the Empire were different. In the Federation, it was almost always the groom providing the betrothal gift and the bride getting married. But in the Empire, it was different. The Empire set the standards based on the family status of both parties. For example, Yu Man and her current boyfriend, Feng Zhua. The Feng family was a respectable family in Chiozei City, but the Yu family was just a peasant family in the countryside. If the Fong family provided the betrothal gift, then the Yu family would have to give a dowry of almost the same standard. If the betrothal gift was more expensive, then it was not something that old Yu could afford, and this marriage might not be possible. Are they giving you a hard time? Ding Ming frowned. Old Yu said, not really. Little Fong is a good kid, but his relatives are a little dissatisfied with us. Ding Ming immediately stood up. It's okay, Old Yu. If there's any problem, I'll solve it for you. Old Yu quickly gestured for him to sit down. Ding Ming, it's not easy for you to come back from retirement. Don't waste the money the military gave you to settle down. You have to get married in the future, all right? Ding Ming had no choice but to sit down. Of course, Old Yu did not know that Ding Ming did not need to get married in the first place. It was all his wives who were throwing themselves at him, and there was more than one of them. Most importantly, the virtual currency of the Empire and the Federation was the universal galactic currency. Ding Ming's money could be used in the Empire as well. If he really took it out, forget about the betrothal gift, it would not be a problem for him to buy 10 TT-12 stars. Chapter 772. Ding Ming stayed in Qingxi village for 3 days, mainly to accompany Old Yu and help him take care of the wheat fields. Of course, with Ding Ming's current strength as an origin ability user, Old Yu did not need to prepare any tools like sickles or hoes for him. Wherever Ding Ming's telekinesis passed, the wheat would automatically be harvested, automatically fly back to the yard, and automatically be packed into piles. Even the wheat that had not matured would be directly killed by his telekinesis. Old Yu could only stare helplessly at this. Ding Ming's efficiency was 10 times faster than an AI robot's. Next, Ding Ming also went to visit the kind citizen officer Fred. Then, he used his wristband to contact Yu Man, and they agreed to meet at the Leaston Academy. Now, entering the city was not as troublesome as before. First, he had to find a taxi to Verdantarn Town, then take the crystal train to Autumntarn City. Ding Ming directly flew into the sky and used his wings of light to fly. The 5,000-kilometer journey only took about 10 minutes, and this was even when he deliberately slowed down to enjoy the beautiful scenery of Jinfeng Oasis. The Leaston Academy had not changed much. It was still as solemn, sacred, and tranquil as before. This church-like school had sent many talents to the Empire in the past 10 years, but none of them were top-notch talents. The one with the greatest achievements was Chu Shaoqing herself. Currently, she was a major general on the Empire's front lines, commanding a huge interstellar fleet. Among her peers, she was the only one with such a rank. At the school gate, Yu Man had been waiting for a long time. When she saw Ding Ming appear on the street, she happily waved her hand. Ding Ming, over here. Yu Man had changed a lot. It was probably because she had entered society and joined the workforce. She had changed from the country girl's clothes to that of an urban professional. Her youthful vitality had also been replaced by a mature charm. She looked like a woman in the workplace. Beside Yu Man was a man with an elegant temperament. Yu Man introduced him. Sure, this is my cousin from my hometown, Ding Ming. He just came back from retirement. Hello, cousin Ding Ming. Fang Zhu's attitude was very gentle, and he did not show any dissatisfaction because of Ding Ming's tattered clothes. On the contrary, the soldiers of the Empire were very respected wherever they went. Yu Man obviously knew about the news of Ding Ming's return from Laoyu. She took the initiative to introduce Ding Ming. Zhuo works in our Autumn Zay City's Cultural and Education Department. He can take you to see the school superintendent. It seemed like Fang Zhuo was someone with some means in Chiozei City. He was actually able to contact the colonel himself. On the way, Yu Man couldn't stop herself from talking. She kept asking about Ding Ming's movements in the past 10 years. Of course, Ding Ming could only choose some insignificant questions to answer. If he were to tell her what he had really experienced, it would be like a fantasy story to ordinary people like Yu Man. The school superintendent was no longer able, but an old man named Fang Yinfeng. He was Fang Zhuo's third great-uncle. No wonder Fang Zhuo could contact him directly. The three of them quickly sat down in the office of the teaching building. After Fang Yinfeng learned about the purpose of Ding Ming's visit, he couldn't help but sigh. So it's Elder Zhao's favorite student. Student Ding Ming, you are really considerate to come and visit him after honorably retiring from the army. Elder Zhao was also a soldier, but he retired 8 years ago. The school also treated him well, allowing him to live in the dormitory in the Western District. 6 years ago, Elder Zhao went to his hometown in Qingxiang, saying that he was going to visit his niece, but since then he never came back. His words seemed simple, but they contained a lot of information. Ding Ming could imagine that Mr. Zhao had retired 8 years ago. Not many people wanted to learn his classical swordsmanship theory lesson. Even if they wanted to learn it, there were only a few who could. Ding Ming was probably the only one who had received his inheritance, and the two ancient swordsmanship were mostly comprehended by Ding Ming herself. Ding Ming recalled what Elder Zhao had said before his death. He wanted Ding Ming to tell his family and friends. Could it be that Elder Zhao's family was his niece in the countryside? Fang Yinfeng sighed and explained, "Little Ding, you don't know. Elder Zhao's life was too rough. When he was young, he responded to the call of the empire and joined the army. He was there for more than 20 years. His wife in his hometown had already run away with someone else, and he didn't leave any children behind. Before Elder Zhao became an origin ability user, it was his sister who supported his studies, at least in college. Later, when he joined the army, his only sister also passed away, leaving only his niece to farm in Qingxiang village." Ding Ming frowned and said, "So, Elder Zhao did go to visit his family 6 years ago?" Fang Yinfeng sighed and said, "But there was no news of him for a long time. The school was also very concerned about him. Half a year later, they sent a teacher to Qingxiang village to look for him, but they found that he and his niece had mysteriously disappeared in Qingxiang village." Disappeared? Ding Ming frowned even more. Fang Yinfeng nodded and said, "Yes, mysteriously disappeared. He disappeared, and so did his niece." The school directly called the police. The guards and the civil protection team were there to investigate, but they didn't find any clues. The space station also didn't have any relevant entry or exit records, but they just couldn't find him. There's still no news of him until now. Of course, he didn't know that Elder Zhao had died in the underground palace of the Flame Star in the Devouring Sector. Ding Ming certainly wouldn't tell him the truth. Ding Ming thought that Elder Zhao should have met with an accident when he returned to his hometown to visit his family 6 years ago. The space station didn't have any entry or exit records, so it was very likely that he was kidnapped. But that was the problem. Who would kidnap a frail and sickly old man? There might only be one answer, and that was the two sword techniques in Elder Zhao's hands. There was really no other explanation. Ding Ming pondered and said, "Did Elder Zhao leave any personal belongings? Or is Elder Zhao's residence still there?" Fang Yinfeng said, "The school has been keeping Elder Zhao's dormitory for 6 years. It hasn't been touched. We firmly believe that he will come back." That made things easier. Ding Ming knew about the dormitory in the Western District, and he also knew where Elder Zhao's room was. "Ding Ming, do you want to take a look at Elder Zhao's dormitory?" Fang Yinfeng asked with concern. Ding Ming said, "Oh, that won't be necessary. I just came back to take a look. Since Elder Zhao isn't here, I'll take my leave." While he was saying this, 30 psychic dots had passed through the teaching building and the central square, flying directly into Suite 15 on the 3rd floor of the Western District's classroom dormitory. Then, they immediately spread out and formed a force field, quickly scanning all the personal belongings in the room, including the portable optical computer, and refreshing all the data. At the same time, they formed a stream of memory and returned to Ding Ming's telepathic consciousness. It took less than 10 seconds to complete the process. In other words, all the data and information of Elder Zhao when he was alive were now in Ding Ming's mind. With this information, there was no need to worry that he couldn't find any clues. After leaving the Leaston Academy, Yuman enthusiastically invited him. "Ding Ming, today is Zhua's grandmother's 112th birthday. She's holding a birthday party in the Central Park. Come with me in Zhua." Fang Zhuo also enthusiastically invited him. "Yeah, Ding Ming, you just came back. It's a good choice to walk around. There will be a lot of people at the party, so it's good to meet a few more people and have more connections. Both of them thought that Ding Meng had no job after retiring, so they wanted to introduce him to some friends to help him make a living. All right, Ding Meng thought about it. He had nothing to do now, so he could use this time to digest the information about Elder Zhao. This was because Elder Zhao left behind a lot of valuable information in her personal optical computer, especially some swordsmanship notes and teaching experience, as well as some personal contact information. The Central Park was located in the center of Chiozei City. It was called a park, but it was actually a large resort. In a small city like Chiozei City, it was considered a very high-class place. The party was held in a quiet hotel deep in the park. It was obviously a family party of the Fong family, but there were still many outsiders who came to celebrate. After the shuttle car landed on the tarmac, a group of girls surrounded him as soon as he got out of the car. Oh, it's really Cousin Ding Meng. Cousin Ding Meng has become a lot more handsome. Lily, there's something wrong with your eyes. Cousin Ding Meng's body has become stronger, so he must be stronger as well. But why can't I sense it? Ding Meng was a little flustered. You guys, the girls immediately looked at him with smiles. Cousin Ding Meng, don't you remember us? You even helped us back then. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been able to graduate from Leaston Academy. Ding Meng looked at the three girls in front of him and couldn't help but say, I remember now. You guys are Sister Man's roommates. The three girls were Zhuo Min, Jiang Lily, and Akasu from Yuman's dormitory. When Lei Bao blackmailed them, it was Ding Meng who stood up for her and disabled her. Lei Bao died in Qingxi village. The four girls all worked in Chiozei City after graduation. They had always taken care of each other and were very close to each other. Huh. Ding Meng scratched his head embarrassedly. So it's you guys. Long time no see. How have you been? Jiang Lily smiled. We heard from Man that Cousin Ding Meng came back from retirement, so we came to see you. Akasu also smiled. Cousin Ding Meng, don't listen to Lily's nonsense. She has a single girl in her office. She wants to matchmake you. Cousin Ding Meng, do you have a girlfriend? If you do, I can introduce you to her today. Well, Ding Meng was a little embarrassed and could only scratch his head. Ahem. Well, let me think about it. Zhuo Min smiled and said, Stop teasing Cousin Ding Meng. It's not easy for him to come back, and it's Grandma's birthday. Let's go in and have a seat. Eating and drinking is the most important thing. Hearing that it was eating, Ding Meng was immediately energized. Yes, yes, yes. Sister Min's suggestion is the best. I happen to be a little hungry. Thus, the group of people chatted and laughed as they walked to the entrance of the first floor of the hotel. Suddenly, they were stopped. Sorry, uninvited guests are not allowed in today. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance. He was Fong Zhuo's cousin, Fong Ying. His main task today was to welcome guests at the entrance. He was already annoyed when he saw Yuman, and now he saw a short boy with untidy clothes beside Yuman. He was even more annoyed. He reached out and stopped the group of people. Fong Zhuo frowned. Brothering, what are you doing? Man and the others are not outsiders. They are all here to celebrate Grandma's birthday. Chapter 773. Fong Ying looked at Yuman and the others with disdain. I know Yuman is not an outsider, but where did this guy come from? He was referring to Ding Meng. In fact, he could not be blamed for deliberately making things difficult for Fong Zhuo. It was mainly because many people in the Fong family did not agree with the relationship between Fong Zhuo and Yuman. The reason was simple. Yuman's family was indeed poor and did not match Fong Zhuo's social status. However, Fong Zhuo was deeply in love with Yuman and did not care about his family's obstruction. Fong Zhuo patiently explained, This is Ding Meng, Man's distant cousin from her hometown. He is a retired soldier of the Norse Empire. Fong Ying was a little disdainful at first, but when he heard that Ding Meng was a soldier of the Norse Empire, his momentum weakened a little, so he said sarcastically, Oh, is that so? When did the soldiers of the Norse Empire fall to the point where they have to sneak into banquets to eat and drink? Zhuo Min and the others' faces suddenly turned ugly, but Fong Zhuo was very calm. Brothering, he is a guest. He is Man's cousin after all. Give me some face. Fong Ying sneered. Haha, I said that guests who are not invited can't go in. Don't you know the rules of the Fong family? Fong Zhui took a deep breath and replied patiently. Ding Meng was invited by me. Is that okay? Fong Ying said, do you think it's okay because you invited him? Only those invited by Grandma are real guests. Why don't you go in and ask Grandma first? You've gone too far. Fong Zhui was a little angry. In the Fong family, except for himself, almost no one was nice to Man. If he went in and asked Grandma now, wouldn't that be slapping his own face? Fong Zhui was about to argue a little more, but he was suddenly stopped by Ding Meng. In the past, if he encountered this kind of situation, Ding Meng's character would turn around and leave without saying anything. He had always been low-key and did not like to argue with people. But this time was different. He already knew the Fong family's views on his family. If he admitted defeat now, it would undoubtedly be embarrassing for Yuman. He came to the city this time with the intention of supporting Yuman. Since I've returned to planet TT-12, I'm like Sister Man's family. Who dares to be rude to my family? You shall face Gale. Ding Meng looked at Fong Ying. You mean I'm not welcome here, right? Fong Ying snorted disdainfully. It's good that you know your place. It saves me the trouble of chasing you away. Otherwise, you'll be embarrassed. Ding Meng looked at him with interest. You are just a mere intermediate war elder. How dare you speak such big words to me? As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone's expression changed. In Ding Meng's eyes, a warlord-level origin ability user wasn't a threat at all. In fact, they weren't even ants. However, on this remote planet, a warlord-level origin ability user wasn't considered weak in Shiozei City. Even if they didn't have much strength, it still represented their status. Fong Ying was furious. Where did this beggar come from? Who do you think you are? Get out of my sight before I lose my temper. Ding Meng looked at him with a faint smile. What if I don't disappear? Then I'll make you disappear. Fong Ying glared fiercely at Ding Meng. Ding Meng was standing there perfectly fine. Fong Ying's heart sank. The aura he released was like mud sinking into the ocean. There was no movement at all. He didn't know that the origin energy pressure he thought he had was nothing in front of Ding Meng. Instead, it was Ding Meng who looked at him calmly and said, You might not know this, but if I want to go somewhere, the people who usually try to stop me are all dead. Today, for the sake of my cousin-in-law, I won't argue with you. Go back and reflect on your actions. As he spoke, he turned his head. Sister Man, Brother Zhuo, let's go in. After he finished speaking, he swaggered into the hotel. Looking at Fong Ying again, she stood there motionless as if she was possessed. Her eyes were staring straight ahead as if she was frozen by ice origin ability. Yuman hurriedly pulled Ding Meng. What did you do to him? Ding Meng didn't care. It's nothing. He'll be fine a while. Really? Yuman didn't believe him. When she was at the Leaston Academy, she already knew that Ding Meng was good at fighting. Ding Meng had joined the army for 10 years, so she believed that Ding Meng's strength would be even stronger. But now, Fong Ying was dumbfounded by Ding Meng's gaze. What was going on? What else could have happened? Ding Meng had only used a very weak telekinesis to bind Fong Ying. He hadn't even released a trace of his aura. If he really used his aura to suppress Fong Ying would have already fallen to the ground unconscious. After successfully entering the hotel, Zhuo Min and the other girls started chattering. They were all students of the Leaston Academy. When they saw the strange situation just now, they knew that Ding Meng was very skilled. Fong Zhui sighed and couldn't help but take a few more glances at Ding Meng. Cousin Ding Meng is really capable. Ding Meng waved his hand casually. Cousin-in-law, you're too polite. Sister Man's business is my business. Whoever wants to cause trouble for her is looking for trouble for themselves. There was a strong warning in his words. If you don't treat my cousin well, you'll be in trouble. Fong Zhui smiled bitterly. The soldiers of our empire are really loyal. The hall on the first floor was very lively. There were about 40 to 50 tables arranged in 2 rows. At the front was a stage decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was a festive atmosphere. Fong Zhui's grandparents were sitting in the center of the stage. All the guests went up to greet them and shake their hands. The 2 elders also greeted them with smiles. Ding Meng naturally didn't have anything to do with the Fong family's birthday gift. He chose a table in the corner of the last row of the hall and sat down. There was no other purpose. Now, every table was served with dishes. Judging from the dishes, they seemed to be of high quality. Of course, Ding Ming's standard for judging the quality of a dish was that if it looked tempting, it must be delicious. If it was something that he hadn't eaten before, it must be something good. So when he sat down, he didn't care about the people around him. He grabbed a whole golden roasted duck and started eating. Seeing him like this, Min and the other girls also sat down next to him with smiles. Yuman also sat at this table. Once Yuman sat down, Fangzhou felt awkward. Logically speaking, as a direct relative, he should sit in the front row. But in order to accompany his girlfriend, he sat down next to Yuman. When Ding Ming saw this scene, he secretly praised Ding Ming. This cousin's wife was quite good, but he felt that her status in the family was not high. 10 minutes later, his idea came true. Fang Ying angrily led a noblewoman towards Ding Ming. The noblewoman was quite beautiful, but she was definitely not a natural beauty. Her all-shaped face was definitely a result of plastic surgery. She looked like a fake person. Yuman also quietly explained, "This is Zhua's second aunt, Qiu Yan. She's from the police department. She has a lot of power in Qiuzhe City." Ding Ming asked curiously, "Can she investigate missing persons?" "Yes." Yuman continued, "You want to find Miss Zhao? She might have some clues." When Ding Ming heard that he could find Mr. Zhao, he decided to be more polite to this woman. However, even though he intended to be polite, she was not polite at all. Qiu Yan was obviously an arrogant person. She walked up to him and said in a strange tone, "Little Zhuo, what are you doing? Why don't you stay in the front row? Why are you hiding the back row?" Fangzhou was obviously well-educated. When he saw that it was an elder, he immediately stood up and answered respectfully, "Second aunt, Man's cousin and friends are at this table. I'm accompanying them." Qiu Yan glanced at Ding Ming. "Oh, Man's cousin also came from Qingxi, right? You're still wearing farm clothes. Let me take you to buy a new set of clothes on the Xiangxie Street. After all, this is Grandma's birthday party. It's not appropriate to dress like this, right?" These words embarrassed everyone, but Yuman was secretly touched. She knew that Ding Ming would definitely help his father with the farm work when he returned to his hometown. Ding Ming was like this. He did not like to express himself with words. He expressed himself with actions. However, Ding Ming did not pay attention to Qiu Yan. Instead, he looked at Fang Ying, who was glaring at her from behind, and smiled. "It's really a child's job." "You seem to be a little unconvinced by these tricks," Fang Ying said angrily. "Second aunt, this guy obviously sneaked in. He doesn't have an invitation." Qiu Yan glanced at Ding Ming. "Then I'm sorry, Man's cousin. We don't allow you to attend the party without an invitation." Ding Ming smiled. "Are you going to kick me out?" Qiu Yan smiled. "It's actually good for you to leave. You don't have to embarrass yourself." Ding Ming suddenly stared at her. "Are you sure you want to kick me out?" Qiu Yan's expression suddenly froze. She felt an inexplicable chill that she had never felt before. It was a fear that came from the depths of her bones. She worked at the police station and often dealt with all kinds of criminals. These criminals exuded a cold and dangerous aura. Because their hands were stained with human lives, they naturally had a murderous aura. However, these people's murderous aura was far inferior to Ding Ming's. Ding Ming only revealed a slightly serious expression, but it was enough to make her shudder. Qiu Yan immediately came to a conclusion. This person's hands were definitely stained with human lives, and not just one. "Xiaoying, go and call your uncle over." Qiu Yan's expression was actually a little nervous. Fang Zhu's second uncle was a middle-aged man with a calm temperament. Even though he was wearing a suit, he exuded the aura of an intermediate origin ability user. Just by analyzing the purity of his thermodynamic aura, one could tell that his strength was not below that of Combat Master. Moreover, he was one of those who had a solid foundation. Fang Zhu's second uncle quickly arrived at the table. His expression was very dignified. "This is Yuman's cousin. Come with me." Yuman couldn't help but ask, "To where?" Fang Zhu's second uncle said expressionlessly, "To the police station for an investigation. I suspect that your motive for coming here is unclear." This time, Yuman could no longer sit still. Why? What crime did Cousin Ding Ming commit? Zhuamin and Jiang Lily also stood up. That's right, Uncle Fong. Cousin Ding Ming only came to the banquet with his cousin. What did he do wrong? Fong's expression was also troubled. Second uncle. Ding Ming is a retired soldier. Fong's second uncle was also a little surprised. He lowered his head and pressed on his wrist device. Oh, is that so? You'll know once you investigate. You need to know that the consequences of impersonating a soldier of the Empire are very serious. Chapter 774. The two groups were about to argue when Ding Ming raised his hand. To stop you, man, sister man. Let him investigate. I want to see what he can find out. Second uncle was obviously also a member of the confidential department. After the wristwatch brought up a few miniature holograms, the holograms buzzed and flashed with red light. Fong Ying's face lit up. Did you find out something? A red light usually meant a warning. Qiu Yan's face lit up as well. Does he have a criminal record? Second uncle stared at the screen for a long time without saying anything. However, his serious expression was replaced with surprise. He really is from the Norse Empire's military. You man, Zhuamin, and the others all looked proud. All citizens of the Empire were proud of being a soldier. Qiu Yan couldn't help but ask, did you find out anything? Second uncle answered coldly, I couldn't find anything. Qiu Yan was shocked. What? Second uncle stared at Ding Ming. His details are classified. Everyone was shocked. People with classified information were usually important personnel on secret missions. Normal people couldn't come into contact with them. Qiu Yan asked again, what's his level? Second uncle's face became expressionless. He's not at the level that Xiuzhe City can investigate. To be precise, even the highest authority on planet TT-12 can investigate him. The whole table quieted down at once, leaving only the sound of Ding Ming slurping her food. They wanted to chase him away, but they didn't expect him to be such an iron plate. They didn't even have the right to investigate him. This was a bit of a slap in the face. Ding Ming, on the other hand, was secretly amused. Chu Shaoqing was definitely the one who had set up his security clearance. The reason was simple. Both Chu Shaoqing and Ding Ming had been to the God War Star Field. This was definitely a big secret for the Empire. Moreover, Ding Ming also possessed the K-virus. This thing could not be revealed to the public. The atmosphere became a bit awkward. Second uncle and the other two stood across from each other. They didn't know if they should leave or sit down. The three of them looked at each other and stared. Fortunately, the host at the entrance suddenly shouted, the representative of Anvil Group's Autumn Pool City branch is here to congratulate you. At this moment, the bustling sounds in the hall immediately stopped. Everyone turned around and looked at the hotel door. Anvil Group was the Chu family's business, and the Chu family's influence on planet TT-12 was second to none. No one dared to ignore them. Fong's grandmother had been sitting on the stage to greet the guests, but when she heard Anvil's name, the old lady actually stood up on her own accord. Hurry up and welcome the distinguished guests. The guest was an ordinary-looking woman. She looked like an ordinary middle-aged woman. She had a polite smile on her face, but her walking posture was very elegant and her attitude was very gentle. She was not good-looking, but she gave people the feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze. The old granny had already stepped forward to welcome her. Miss Zhong Hong, your presence brings light to my humble dwelling. Please take a seat. Zhong Hong smiled and said, Elder Shi, you're too polite. The old man has been thinking about you. He knows that today is your big day, so he asked me to prepare a gift for your birthday. I wish you happiness as great as the East Sea and longevity as long as the South Mountain. How thoughtful. The old granny's face was red. It was obvious that she was happy from the bottom of her heart. The old man of the Chu family had sent someone to deliver a gift. This gave them a lot of face. At the very least, it showed that the Fong family was quite influential in Autumn Pool City. Fong couldn't help but smile proudly. See, the Chu family is very polite to our family, unlike some people. It's fine if they don't have a gift, but they still sneak in to eat and drink. Of course, he was secretly mocking Yuman and her brother. Yuman's expression was not good, but Ding Ming buried his head in his food and didn't care about the outside world at all. Moreover, the sound of eating was so loud that it felt like he wasn't eating, but pouring all kinds of plates into his mouth. The movement was really too loud. On the other side of the stage, Zhong Hong asked people to carry the gift up. Then, she chatted with the old granny and the other celebrities. Only then did she get attracted by Ding Ming's voice. In fact, Ding Ming's way of eating was very impolite in this kind of occasion. However, he couldn't be blamed. As long as he had the opportunity to eat, even if the King of Heaven came, he would eat first. The old granny frowned. What's going on? Who is this person? Where did he come from? Zhong Hong waved her hand and smiled. Elder Shi, it's okay. He's young. I'll be back soon. Then, she walked down the stage and slowly walked to Ding Ming's table. This time, the three people of the second uncle's group exchanged glances. You little brat, you've provoked the Chu family. Let's see how you deal with it now. Zhuo Min and the others also looked nervous. The Chu family was not the Fong family. They couldn't afford to offend anyone here. However, Zhong Hong didn't say a word after sitting down opposite Ding Ming. It seemed that she was patiently waiting for Ding Ming to eat. However, Ding Ming ignored her and continued to put 2 plates of longevity noodles in front of him. After a long time, Zhong Hong smiled and said, "Long time no see, Ding Ming." Ding Ming sighed helplessly and put down the chopsticks in his hand. It's been more than 10 years, Sister Zhong. It turned out that this person was none other than Sister Zhong, Chu Xiaoqing's tutor and driver, when she was studying at the Leaston Academy. At that time, Sister Zhong's strength had made Ding Ming look up to her, but now it seemed that Sister Zhong was an ice warrior. Ding Ming only glanced at her and evaluated her strength. However, Zhong Hong couldn't see through Ding Ming now. Chu Xiaoqing occasionally came back to visit her family from the front line. She had reminded everyone in the Chu family more than once that her current achievements couldn't be separated from the contributions of her classmate and friend Ding Ming. Anyone in the Chu family who saw Ding Ming must be respectful. Ding Ming was not only her good friend, but also the most important person in the Chu family who was worthy of making friends with. This kind of reminder was very important. In terms of identity and strength, Chu Xiaoqing was a popular figure in the Norse Empire. She didn't even bother to look at the pursuers of many rich and powerful men. However, she admired this classmate named Ding Ming very much. Now that Zhong Hong sensed Ding Ming, she realized the real meaning of Miss Ding Ming's words. Now, Ding Ming's strength was beyond her imagination. No wonder Miss Chu valued him so much. Zhong Hong suddenly stood up. Ding Ming, congratulations. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Her completely different attitude from before and after really shocked everyone. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. As one of the housekeepers of the Chu family, Zhong Hong, who was in a high position, was actually respectful and polite to this boy dressed in farmer's clothing. What was the background of this boy? Ding Ming smiled. Sister Zhong, you're too polite. Let's sit down and talk. Zhong Hong only dared to sit down after he said that. Ding Ming looked at second uncle and the others with a faint smile. Sorry, I was a little loud when I was eating, but it seems that someone here didn't welcome me and was about to kick me out. Zhong Hong suddenly turned her head and didn't say anything. She just looked at old lady Shi in the distance. Old lady, she was frightened by her gaze and immediately glared at second uncle and Xiao Yan. What are you doing? Is this how you welcome a distinguished guest? Second uncle and the others' heads buzzed. God, this man's cousin has such a big background. How come we didn't know about it? Fortunately, Fang Zhuo took the initiative to explain. Grandma, Ding Ming is Man's distant cousin. This time, he came to the city to see her. Old lady, she had lived for a long time and was also a smart person. She seemed to suddenly understand and let out a long breath. Oh, so he's a family member. Why'd a man go over there? Come to the main table. Her words had completely changed everyone's opinion of Man Yu Man was still in shock. Ding Ming turned his head and said, Sister Man, Grandma is calling for you. You can go and sit with cousin-in-law. Yu Man was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Even Zhuo Min and the others were stunned. Ding Ming's cousin was good at fighting in the past, but today, Ding Ming's casual words had such great weight. He was even more powerful than the governor of the city-state. It should be known that the governor of Jinfeng Suifeng Oasis was polite in front of Zhonghong, but Zhonghong had to stand in front of Ding Ming. If Ding Ming didn't ask her to sit, she wouldn't dare to sit down. What had cousin Ding Ming experienced all these years? Feng Zhu's heart was also in a perilous situation. When did our man have such a powerful cousin? Why didn't she mention it before? Everyone was still whispering when the MC at the gate spoke again. His voice was very excited. Anvil Group's Miss Chu Xiaoqing is here to congratulate. Wow! The crowd suddenly became excited, and old lady Granny's face was flushed with excitement. Chu Xiaoqing was now a rising star in the Norse Empire. The significance of her personally coming to congratulate was completely different from Zhonghong's arrival. Old lady, she directly went to the gate to welcome her personally. There were two people who walked in, and the one in front was naturally Chu Xiaoqing herself. This time, her image had changed a lot. She didn't wear the Bureau's commander's uniform. Instead, she returned to her previous white sports attire with a baseball cap. Her brown curly hair flowed down from both sides, setting off her delicate face and making her look very charming. However, when she looked around, the majesty between her brows could still be faintly seen. This was the real big shot who gave orders. Behind Chu Xiaoqing was naturally the bright-eyed, white-toothed, and heroic Xing Yi. Chu Xiaoqing cupped her hands as soon as she entered. Granny Shi, congratulations. I wish you a long and happy life. Old lady, she couldn't stop smiling. Xiaoqing, you're too kind. You took time out of your busy schedule to come and see me. Ding Ming couldn't help but look at Zhonghong. His meaning was obvious. Zhonghong obviously saw Ding Ming, so she immediately informed Chu Xiaoqing. Zhonghong couldn't help but smile bitterly and spread her hands. Young mistress has been resting for the past 2 months and came back to visit her family. Who knew it would be so coincidental? Ding Ming, you also happened to return to planet TT-12. Sure enough, Chu Xiaoqing only exchanged a few words with old lady. She then led Xing Yi to Ding Ming's table. Even the most ignorant people could tell that Chu Xiaoqing didn't come here just to congratulate on the birthday. She came here because of this young man called Ding Ming. Ding Ming suddenly looked at Feng Ying and said with a faint smile, I think you can leave now. Go outside and welcome the guests. That's what you should do. Remember what I said before. Go back and reflect. Feng Ying almost knelt down in front of Ding Ming. No words could replace his gratitude to Ding Ming, because Ding Ming spared him this time. Ding Ming only had to say something in front of Chu Xiaoqing. Chu Xiaoqing could just move her mouth slightly and bury him, including everything he had. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ding Ming. Feng Ying bowed deeply. Chapter 775. Feng Ying ran towards the door as if she was running for her life. Second uncle and his wife were also preparing to slip away. However, Ding Ming lazily said, Just now, someone suspected that I was impersonating a soldier of the Empire and said that it was a serious crime. Oh, something like that happened. Chu Xiaoqing had already walked over to the table and sat down beside Ding Ming. Second uncle's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He really didn't know how to answer. Actually, he was smart enough not to open his mouth. If he dared to open his mouth, the result would be a horrible death. Xing Yi took the initiative to speak. Ding Ming, you really are something. Why didn't you contact us after you returned to planet TT-12? Ding Ming smiled. It's good that you guys are fine. This was referring to their separation on planet Extreme Flame. Chu Xiaoqing sighed. Speaking of which, I really have to thank Big Brother Xinjia. Back then, when he was teleporting us, he set our coordinates very accurately and sent us directly back to the frontline command. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. Is this considered preferential treatment? The rest of us were all scattered all over the place. Chu Xiaoqing also smiled bitterly. I'm sorry. I must have caused you a lot of trouble. However, it's good that you're back. How are the others? Ding Ming said, I found them all. Everyone is reunited. Chu Xiaoqing's eyes immediately lit up. That's great. The three of them chatted with each other. The people around them didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Many people knew that this young lady of the Chu family had served on the front line of the Empire's war zone. She always had a serious expression on her face and spoke bluntly, regardless of whether she was a man or a woman. However, right now, she was chatting happily with Ding Ming. Second uncle and Xiao Yin could tell that this Ding Ming was definitely not Miss Chu's lover. Instead, he was Miss Chu's close friend and might even be her comrade on the front line. Chu Xiaoqing said, "Ding Ming, why did you suddenly come back to your hometown?" Ding Ming didn't plan to hide it. "I came back this time to look for Mr. Zhao." Chu Xiaoqing said, "Mr. Zhao, you from the Christine Academy?" Ding Ming nodded. "Yes." Chu Xiaoqing smiled and said, "What a coincidence. I came back this time to visit him." She emphasized the word visit. As her old friend, how could Ding Ming not understand the underlying meaning? It seemed that the Empire's military had already noticed teacher Zhao's abnormality. Ding Ming didn't beat around the bush. He turned to Qiao Yin and asked, "Mr. Zhao, you should be listed as a missing person, right?" Qiao Yin was no longer as arrogant as before. She quickly replied, "We've been working hard on the cases that the police department oversaw previously." These words were equivalent to not saying anything. It meant that the police force in Qiuzhe City had not discovered teacher Zhao's whereabouts. Chu Xiaoqing winked at Ding Ming. "Ding Ming, my father has admired you for a long time and has always wanted to meet you. When are you free?" She meant that this was not the right place to talk. Ding Ming immediately stood up and smiled. "Let's do it now. I don't know when Uncle is free. Anyway, I'm very free these days. I'm always free." Zhong Hong understood and also stood up. "Miss Chu, I'll go and prepare the car." Ding Ming nodded and looked at his second uncle and his wife again. "Second aunt, I may ask you for more information in the future. Are you okay with that?" Qiao Yin immediately straightened her back. "No problem at all. I'll do as you say." Ding Ming then looked at his second uncle. "Second uncle, Sister Man is in Qiuzhe City. Please take care of her. I'll come back to visit her occasionally." This was a typical example of giving a way out for the couple. His second uncle also stood up like a new soldier. "Please don't worry. Xiao Man is a family member. I'll be the first to disagree with anyone who dares to make her feel wronged." Ding Ming didn't say anything more to the two of them. Instead, she walked towards Yu Man, who was in the crowd. "Sister Man, I have something to do with Miss Chu. Why don't you stay here and play with Sister Man?" Yu Man answered, "Ding Ming, go and do your business. We sisters can take care of each other." When she said this, Fang Zhuo winked at her. Yu Man understood. She pulled Ding Ming and whispered, "Ding Ming, you just came back from the front line. You don't have much money. Take this money first. You can't be rude when you go to Miss Chu's house." She quietly turned on her wrist device and prepared to transfer the money to Ding Ming. Ding Ming couldn't help but laugh secretly. "Sister Man, I didn't earn much outside these years. You can take this money to show your filial piety to old you. You can also prepare a small gift for Grandma, and the rest can be your pocket money." Ding Ming also turned on his wrist device and entered a string of numbers. Yu Man's wrist device buzzed for at least 30 seconds. "Miss Chu, let's go." Ding Ming turned around and said to Chu Xiaoqing. Until Ding Ming and the others disappeared at the entrance of the hotel, Yu Man was still holding her wrist device and standing there in a daze. She looked as if she had lost her soul. "What's wrong?" Fang Zhuo asked with concern. Yu Man was dumbfounded. "Cousin Ding Ming, he didn't take my money. Instead, he transferred some money to me." Zhuo Min came over with a smile and said, "Look at you. Cousin Ding Ming is so sensible. He knows that you are short of money, but he didn't take your money. Instead, he cares about you, his sister." Zhang Lily also came over. "Ah, if only Ding Ming was my cousin. He knows how to care about his sister." Akasa laughed. "How much did cousin Ding Ming give you?" "Man, look at your pale face." The three girls leaned their heads towards the wristwatch. 2 seconds later, they covered their mouths tightly at the same time, their faces filled with disbelief. Fang Zhuo was also curious. "How much money? How did you all become like this?" He also looked at it. Then he suspected that his eyes were playing tricks on him. There was a string of Arabic numbers on the screen. He counted them carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A total of 8 zeros. But the first number was a 1. 100 million star coins? Feng Zhu was also dumbfounded. Even though he thought he had a strong mentality, he was still dumbfounded. 100 million star coins was enough to buy 3 Fong families. However, this was the pocket money Ding Meng gave you, man. The pocket money was in the hundreds of millions. How rich was he? Awesome. Feng Zhu, who was always well-educated, said these 2 words. With this 100 million star coins, no one in the Fong family would treat you, man, as a peasant girl anymore. She was a perfect beauty with Ding Meng and Chu Xiaoqing behind her. Man's cousin is really particular. Second uncle couldn't help but exclaim. Yes. Qiu Yin sighed in relief. She made things difficult for Feng Zhu, but Feng Zhu didn't care about her. It wasn't that Feng Zhu was magnanimous, but that she didn't have the right to make him care. Luckily, I didn't let Xiao Ying do anything out of line. If Feng Ying really did something to Ding Meng, not only would the 2 of them lose their positions, but the entire Fong family would also be in trouble. Man, if you need anything in the future, just let me know. Yes, yes, yes. We're family. Man, if you have any difficulties, you must inform me immediately. Our family isn't that great, but we still have a say in Qiuzhe City. Isn't old you still in Qingxi? I think we should just invite him to live in the city. For a moment, the Fong family's attitude towards Yu Man took a 180-degree turn, which made Yu Man and the other girls confused. While they were asking about Yu Man's well-being, Ding Meng had already boarded Chu Xiaoqing's Bluebird shuttle and was flying in the sky above Qiuzhe City. The Chu family was now a famous family on planet TT-12. The Chu family's courtyard was also far away from the bustling city center and was located near a green river in the suburbs. Ding Meng felt very familiar when he saw this courtyard from the sky. This was because the Chu family's courtyard was built in the Huaxia retro style of the Great Wei Dynasty, with typical pavilions and waterside pavilions. The courtyard wasn't very big, only a little over 1,000 square meters. The houses were all made of gray-white wood, which gave people a feeling of tranquility, elegance, and naturalness. It was obvious that the Chu family wasn't ostentatious. Of course, Ding Meng still had a good eye. Just the wood used to build these houses was the best wood in the empire. How could ordinary people afford such expensive wood? As the Bluebird shuttle slowly landed on the ground, Ding Meng found that Chu Xiaoqing's father had already led a group of people to personally welcome them at the gate. Ding Meng had also heard Xingyi mention before that Chu Xiaoqing's father, Chu Shangqing, was originally a small vendor on planet TT-12. He was classified as a management-type origin ability user. He started from setting up a street stall and slowly started small workshops, small shops, small production lines, and finally established Anvil Corporation. He was a typical example of someone who started from scratch. Chu Xiaoqing was the 4th in the family. She had 3 older brothers, all of whom were business talents. However, the 3rd brother, Chu Zhenwei, had died young due to a chronic illness. The other 2 brothers were hardworking entrepreneurs, and together, they managed the huge corporation Anvil Corporation. Because the whole family was non-combat type origin ability users, Anvil Corporation's development was indirectly limited to Qiuzhe City. However, Chu Xiaoqing's origin ability awakened early after she was born, so Chu Shangqing decided to raise this little girl and definitely mold her into a famous martial artist. That was how Chu Xiaoqing ended up joining the army. Chu Xiaoqing didn't disappoint her family's investment and expectations. After completing the mission on the Dead Silent Star, she successfully joined the army and was transferred to the front lines. She used her outstanding military talent to command the fleet and didn't suffer a single defeat in several large-scale battles in the fertile Chalk Star system. Very quickly, she was recognized by the big shots of the Empire and was promoted to commander. However, the event that really made Chu Xiaoqing shine was the trip to the God War Star system. That was because the military traitor Gu Yu was killed in outer space. Of course, this was due to Ding Meng's contribution. Chu Xiaoqing definitely wouldn't reveal any information about Ding Meng to the outside world. Thus, the military credited this great merit to her, and she became one of the youngest major generals in the empire. Chu Xiaoqing's outstanding performance also benefited the family business. Anvil Corporation had now grown to become one of the designated logistics companies of the empire. Although it still couldn't be compared to the top financial groups, its status was still there. No one dared to look down on it, and no one dared to cause trouble. Going against the military, was that not courting death? Of course. Only Chu Xiaoqing herself knew why things had been so smooth for more than 10 years. It was all thanks to her experience many years ago when she went to the Qingze Town Martial Arts Hall to find a sparring partner, where she met the benefactor of her life, Ding Ming. After many years, Ding Ming finally came to the Chu family as a guest. Naturally, the Chu family welcomed his arrival with the highest courtesy. Chapter 776. Ding Ming's first impression of Chu Xiaoqing and his wife was that Chu Xiaoqing had definitely inherited her parents' excellent genes. They were completely carved from the same mold. She not only had her mother Xia Yun's elegant and charming appearance, but she had also inherited her father's calm and refined temperament. This must be Ding Ming, right? Chu Xiaoqing did not look like a middle-aged man at all. Instead, he looked like a young man in his 40s. Xia Yun also maintained her appearance very well. She elegantly followed behind Chu Xiaoqing. "Welcome, Ding Ming." Ding Ming could only bow his head politely. "Uncle, Auntie, nice to meet you." Chu Xiaoqing's face was full of smiles. "I've heard Xiaoqing mention you many times. Today, I finally get to meet you in person. Although you're not a very handsome young man, you have your own spirit. Come in and have a seat. Please." These words were not pretentious or distant, and Chu Xiaoqing's attitude was very sincere. Ding Ming immediately had a good impression of this elder. The front row of the Chu family's villa was a reception hall. It was decorated in an ancient style and was quite artistic. In the center, there was even a solid rockery in the shape of a pine tree welcoming guests. The fragrance of sandalwood lingered in the air, causing one to feel refreshed. Ding Ming sniffed carefully. It actually had the effect of the Flying Star City's calming tea. He could not help but exclaim in surprise. This is the effect of a refreshing medicine, right? It's a rare good thing. Brother Ding is indeed an expert. Chu Xiaoqing's brother, Chu Yang, could not help but give a thumbs up. This sandalwood is a new product that our company designed this year. It's mainly used on the front lines. Soldiers can install it in their weapons. It has a very strong effect on dispelling poison. Recently, our company has been promoting it. Chu Xiaoqing smiled embarrassedly. "Ding Ming, my brother is a workaholic. Normally, he puts all his energy into business. Whenever he opens his mouth, it's always about business." Ding Ming smiled and waved his hand. "It's fine. Isn't he the same as us origin ability users? Whenever he has time, he thinks about how to improve his strength." The group sat down in the living room, and the servants served them tea and fruits, all of which were the most expensive specialties of the empire. "Ding Ming, since you're here, you're a guest. Go back to your hometown and rest for a while. Let us do our part as hosts." Chu Xiaoqing spoke first. Ding Ming pondered. With Chu Xiaoqing's status, she should know a lot of things. Therefore, Chu Xiaoqing must have heard about what happened to him in the Federation. "Uncle, you're too kind. I came back this time mainly to visit Mr. Zhao. Unfortunately, he's not in the academy," Ding Ming replied calmly. Chu Xiaoqing's second brother, Chu Zheng, sighed and said, "Brother Ding, actually, you're also a citizen of the empire, and you're also a member of the military. Forgive me for speaking bluntly. Although the Federation is powerful, it doesn't value talents as much as the empire. Xiaoqing is your classmate and comrade. Now that you're back, you should properly develop yourself in the empire. With Xiaoqing in the military, she'll be of great help to you." Before Ding Ming could reply, Xia Yun took over the topic. "That's right. Xiaoqing came back for a vacation, and Ding Ming also came back to rest. You guys have been running around for a long time, and it's rare for you to have a chance to rest. In my opinion, why don't you and Xiaoqing travel together to relax?" "Huh, this doesn't sound right. Why does it sound like she's trying to matchmake me? Looking at the Chu family members' crafty smiles, Ding Ming suddenly felt a little awkward. Chu Xiaoqing's face immediately turned red. "Mom, what are you talking about? Ding Ming and I are close friends. Don't make wild guesses about our relationship." In fact, Ding Ming also knew about this. During the trip to the Dead Silent Star, Randy's tragic death had touched Chu Xiaoqing too much, so much so that it had deeply affected her over the years. Chu Xiaoqing did not touch anything about love between men and women. There were countless people from the rich and powerful families in the empire who pursued her, but Chu Xiaoqing rejected them all. It was not that she could not forget Randy. It was mainly because she would compare Randy to anyone of the opposite sex in this aspect. For a soldier like her, if he did not sacrifice himself to save her, then there was no need to talk about relying on him in life and death. However, she had been talking about Ding Ming in front of her family for a long time, which made the Chu family mistakenly think that she liked this young man called Ding Ming. Ding Ming also quickly explained, "Uncle, Annie, I'm already married. My friendship with Miss Chu is deeper." Oh, this time, it was Xing Yi who was surprised. "Ding Ming, did you find a partner in the Federation?" Chu Xiaoqing was also interested. "Why haven't you mentioned it before?" Ding Ming smiled and said, "Actually, you've met her before. On the Conqueror, Lu Qing is one of my wives." "One of your wives?" Xing Yi's eyes widened in curiosity. "Do you have a few more wives?" Ding Ming was a little embarrassed. "I have 4 wives now. I really didn't know that Ding Ming was so charming. You're awesome." Xing Yi gave him a thumbs up. Chu Zheng smiled and said, "The Federation is like this. They don't promote monogamy like the Empire. Brother Ding is so outstanding. It's normal for him to have 3 wives and 4 wives." Chu Xiaoqing looked at her parents. "Did you hear that? I told you before that Ding Ming and I were classmates when we first met, and then we became comrades in outer space. That's how our relationship is." Chu Xiaoqing and his wife could only smile bitterly. They had misunderstood and thought that Chu Xiaoqing was bringing a man home to reunite with her family. Seeing that her parents were embarrassed, Chu Xiaoqing quickly waved her hand and said, "Dad, Mom, big brother, second brother, I asked Ding Ming to come here to discuss important military matters. Go and prepare dinner. I believe that I still have the face to ask Ding Ming to stay for a meal." After she said that, the rest of the people stood up. Before leaving, Chu Xiaoqing didn't forget to remind them, "Ding Ming, Xiao Yi, stay with us for the next 2 days. It's a rare opportunity for us to reunite." Ding Ming and Xing Yi naturally agreed. After everyone left, Chu Xiaoqing slowly stood up from the sofa. "Ding Ming, did you meet Elder Zhao before?" Ding Ming said sadly, "To be honest, Teacher Zhao died half a year ago." "Died?" Both Chu Xiaoqing and Xing Yi were shocked. "Where?" Ding Ming sighed. "On the Flame Star, one of the hinterlands of the Devouring Sector. I saw it with my own eyes." Chu Xiaoqing and Xing Yi looked at each other, their eyes filled with deep shock. "Ding Ming, you must have returned to the Norse Empire to investigate Elder Zhao's past, right?" Chu Xiaoqing asked carefully. Ding Ming sighed even more heavily. Teacher Zhao was too pitiful. He was modified into a 5th-generation frogman warrior and died under Junling's blade. Chu Xiaoqing and Xing Yi were so shocked that they couldn't speak. They also knew that Junling was Ding Ming's little sister. The reason behind it must be very strange that one of their own killed one of their own. Chu Xiaoqing paced back and forth in the house with her hands behind her back. There was a deep contemplation on her face, as if she was making a decision. After a long time, she waved her hand and said, "Ding Ming, are you interested in visiting my house?" Ding Ming reached out his hand and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Chu to lead the way." Coming out of the guest hall on the 1st floor, Chu Xiaoqing led him west. After passing through a few flower beds, they stopped in front of a simple single-story wooden villa. Ding Ming noticed that this villa was a bit different. The doors and windows were covered in a lot of dust, as if it had been abandoned for a long time and was not used for living. Xing Yi also didn't come with him this time. It seemed that what Chu Xiaoqing wanted to discuss with him was quite confidential. Looking at the dusty wooden house, Chu Xiaoqing's face was filled with emotion. This was my third brother, Chu Xiaola's room, when he was alive. I loved to come here to play when I was young. My third brother spent most of my childhood with me. Her eyes were filled with nostalgia for the past. It could be seen that among the Chu siblings, Chu Xiaoqing and Chu Xiaola were very close. Ding Ming suddenly waved his hand, and catoptric deflection immediately left his belt and transformed into a classical sword. This is the Krypton gold sword you gave me back then. Along the way, I killed countless strong enemies. I guess I didn't let down your third brother's wish when he was alive? Chu Xiaoqing smiled. If my third brother was still alive, he would be proud of you for using this sword, because you did what he couldn't do for him. Then, Chu Xiaoqing gently pushed open the two wooden doors. There were all kinds of strange things piled up in the living room. Other than the optical computer, workbench, cutter, culture tank, crystal bottle, and some children's toys, Ding Ming couldn't name the other things. Ding Ming hesitated and said, "These things are..." Chu Xiaoqing lowered her head and looked at the dusty junk. The nostalgia in her eyes became even stronger. My third brother was a clever person since he was young. Anything he saw, he could immediately copy it, and he could even make it manually. Ding Ming listened quietly. Chu Xiaoqing continued. But at that time, our family wasn't doing very well. The business of my father's workshop was very bad, and the whole family was invested in the sales of nutrient solution. Sometimes I would see a toy or a piece of clothing I liked on the street, but I couldn't afford to buy it. Ding Ming said, "So after you came back, your third brother personally made toys and clothes for you?" Chu Xiaoqing nodded. "Before I was 6 years old, all the toys I had were made by him. After he left, I kept these toys and put them in here." Ding Ming thought for a while. "Actually, this is also a kind of talent. I heard that among the non-combat origin ability users, there's a profession called the simulation master. No matter what it is, as long as you let him look at it once, he can immediately copy it. The imitation is enough to pass off as the real thing. However, it is said that a person with this kind of profession and talent has almost never been born before." Chu Xiaoqing's eyes immediately revealed a look of admiration. "If my third brother heard this, he would definitely treat you as his confidant." Ding Ming laughed. "You flatter me. I have only heard of it, but I have never seen such a talented person. I'm not afraid that you will laugh at me, but even if I cultivate applied telekinesis, I can't do this." Chu Xiaoqing casually picked up a model of an engineering car. "Actually, copying these things also requires materials. I just said that our family's financial condition didn't allow it at that time. Therefore, my father and the others didn't support our behavior." This confirmed Ding Ming's guess. Chu Xiaoqing's third brother playing with these things might seem like a special hobby to outsiders, but in the eyes of his father and brothers, he was a prodigal son. Chapter 777. Chu Xiaoqing continued. "When I was 12, I awakened my origin ability. Our family business also started to improve, and Anvil Corporation was registered. My father and the others decided to train me with all their might. Sister Zhong was my father's old classmate. Our family spent a lot of money to hire her to teach me. On the surface, she was the housekeeper of the Chu family, but in reality, she was my personal teacher." Ding Ming said, "You did grow up very quickly." Chu Xiaoqing said, "I needed a lot of resources to awaken my origin ability and cultivate. All of these couldn't be done without financial support." Ding Ming frowned and said, "But this is strange. You awakened your origin ability so early when you were 12, but you were only 21 when I met you. After 9 years, you still haven't broken through to become a beginner warrior. Isn't this a bit unreasonable?" Chu Xiaoqing smiled and said, "I often ask my parents for money. In fact, I secretly gave most of the money to my third brother." Ding Ming suddenly understood. Based on the relationship between the two siblings, as the younger sister, she must have fully supported her brother's hobbies. Chu Xiaoqing said seriously, "Actually, my third brother was a genius. At that time, ordinary toys and machines could no longer satisfy him. He studied all kinds of strange fields and covered a wide range of topics. He often used optical computers to move around on the International Space Network, the Black Gold Web, and the Dark Web. At that time, our family also established contact with the government and the military. My third brother liked to deal with the observers on the patrol fleet. He often described the strange phenomena and principles in the depths of the universe to me. I was largely influenced by him. Ding-Ming looked at her and said quietly, "I'm afraid your father must have been very opposed to his hobbies, right?" Chu Shaoqing let out a long sigh. "Yes, you guessed right. That Krypton gold ancient sword was bought with a huge sum of money. Only something like that can satisfy his appetite. Dad often yells at him. Big brother and second brother are busy with their careers and don't agree with him. He slowly becomes isolated and doesn't like to talk to strangers. He doesn't even talk to his family. Only I can communicate with him normally." Ding Ming sighed and said, "Third brother Chu must have loved you very much when he was alive." Chu Shaoqing suddenly turned around. She did not want Ding Ming to see her expression. Yes, he didn't support me joining the army. He wanted me to be like other normal girls, grow up happily and smoothly graduate from school. He didn't want me to participate in the family business, get married, help my husband and raise my children, and live a simple life. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. "I also want to live like this, but unfortunately, things don't go as I wish." Chu Shaoqing turned around again. In order not to distract me, he gave up a lot of academic research and devoted himself to only one field, which is the Norse Empire's enemy, the Black Frogs. Ding Ming's heart sank. He had a bad premonition. Chu Shaoqing said, "The Frogman Kingdom is the biggest threat to our dynasty." At that time, the dynasty spent a lot of money to collect all kinds of methods to deal with the frogs, from the development of starship technology to the disintegration of the frog's skin. As long as it was practical, the dynasty would adopt it. Ding Ming frowned. What did third brother Chu come up with? Chu Shaoqing suddenly looked up. "Don't be surprised if I tell you." The result of his research was the reconstructed warriors. It would be strange if Ding Ming was not surprised. Third brother Chu came up with the reconstructed warriors? Chu Shaoqing nodded. It should be the first generation of reconstructed warriors. At that time, the dynasty's army suffered a lot of casualties. He designed a metal model specifically for soldiers whose organs were completely damaged and could not be recovered. He made them fit perfectly with the metal and put them back on the battlefield. These first-generation warriors still exist on the front lines of the fertile chalk system to this day. Ding Ming's face sank. But today, not only have the reconstructed warriors been upgraded to the 7th generation, they're also being used by the frogmen on a large scale. Is there a reason behind this? Chu Shaoqing nodded. I can confirm that third brother Chu came up with the first-generation warriors model. Using this model as a prototype, the subsequent generations of warriors could not be separated from the design principles of the first-generation warriors. Back then, he contributed his research results to the government for the use of the army. Our Chu family was rewarded by the dynasty because of this. During that time, the relationship between father and third brother Chu eased a lot, but third brother Chu fell sick. Ding Ming was curious. "Sick?" Chu Shaoqing said, "In my memory, there were a few months when he said that he had been cheated of his research results. He locked himself in this room all day, not eating or drinking, only muttering to himself. He lost a lot of weight in a short time." Ding Ming asked, "Who cheated him?" Chu Shaoqing shook her head. "I don't know," and he never said anything. It was only when I went to the front lines of the fertile chalk system that I was able to confirm one thing. The dynasty's military did not keep the first-generation warriors model well, and it fell into the hands of criminals. After being sold, it flowed into the hands of the Black Frogmen. The Black Frogmen used advanced biotechnology to upgrade several generations of reconstructed warriors. These reconstructed warriors killed the dynasty's soldiers until not even their bones were left. Ding Ming was dejected. Third brother Chu must have taken this very hard. Chu Shaoqing said, "Yes, he was very remorseful. He even asked the patrol fleet to send him to the front lines." He wanted to personally investigate the frogmen's reconstructed warriors. Ding Ming asked, "Did he go?" "He went." Chu Shaoqing nodded slowly. He begged father bitterly. In the end, Sister Zhong came forward and contacted the military. Her condition was that he was only allowed to collect fragments from the battlefield and bring them back for research. He was not allowed to enter the war zone and get involved in the battle. Ding Ming asked what happened in the end. Chu Shaoqing revealed a sad expression. He was 20 years old that year. After he came back, he mysteriously contracted a strange disease. All the medical devices and medical cabins could not cure him. Father and mother spent a lot of money to hire the best doctors in the empire, but none of the doctors could do anything. Ding Ming was shocked. What disease did he have? Chu Shaoqing shook her head. All the cells in his body were withering, and his organs were failing. There were no signs, and they could not find the cause. From a medical point of view, this is a very complicated natural atrophy of the human body. He slowly became thin, withered, and died in extreme pain. Chu Shaoqing's voice choked. At the end of his life, he even wanted to transform himself into a reconstructed warrior, leaving only his brain and replacing the rest with a prosthetic body or metal. Ding Ming's face became expressionless. That's strange. With the current medical standards of the Federal Empire, it's impossible that such a strange disease could not be cured. Perhaps there's only one explanation. He did not specify what this explanation was, but Chu Shaoqing agreed with him. Yes, everyone thinks that he was infected when he went to the fertile chalk star system, but I definitely do not believe that he was infected by accident. Ding Ming said, "If it was man-made, with your current status and ability, you should be able to find out the truth." Chu Shaoqing shook her head. "I can't find anything. This incident happened more than 20 years ago. I've checked all the information in detail. The people, things, and things related to this incident are all gone now. All that's left is this room full of relics." Ding Ming looked at her. "I believe that Brother Chu was the biggest motivation for you to join the army, right?" Chu Shaoqing said, "To a large extent, that's the reason. I don't want him to die without knowing the reason." Ding Ming was silent. He understood this feeling. When your family and friends passed away, you knew that they died unjustly, but there was nothing you could do. Chu Shaoqing's tone changed again. But 10 years ago, things changed again. Ding Ming was immediately interested. "Oh," Chu Shaoqing said, "do you still remember Guyu?" Ding Ming, of course, remembered. That was the expert who fought against him outside the Rainbow Planet. Of course, with his current experience, that person was not even a novice. Chu Shaoqing said, "He defected to the Federation and flew to the Divine War Star system. There's information that shows that he's related to the incident back then, because he was active in the front line of the fertile chalk star system. He was in charge of the area that Brother Chu went to back then." Ding Ming sighed. No wonder the Conqueror starship chased after him for hundreds of light years. But it was too difficult for you, Xing Yi, and Brother Jia to take him down back then. Chu Shaoqing said, "In the end, he died at your hands." Ding Ming smiled bitterly. He did not know if it was a blessing or a curse. Chu Shaoqing seemed to know what he was thinking. "You're not to blame for that. I was too young and underestimated the complicated situation in space. I didn't expect that it would attract so many forces from the Swallowing Frogman Kingdom. If you hadn't killed Guyu's group, Xiaoyi, Brother Xi and Jia, and I would have all died outside." Ding Ming said, "But this lead is gone." Chu Shaoqing said seriously, "But 3 years ago, after we returned from the Divine War Star system, many strange fifth-generation warriors appeared in the front line of the fertile chalk star system." Ding Ming asked, "What kind of strange?" Chu Shaoqing explained, "You should know that both the Frogmen and the Noroxing Empire have reconstructed warriors. However, there's a clear distinction between the two. The Frogmen use the memory neurons of the frog monsters, and they use biotechnology. Our Empire, on the other hand, uses the spirit bodies or brains of humans, and we use crystal technology." Ding Ming nodded. "The difference between the generations is in terms of weapons and functions, right?" Chu Shaoqing said seriously, "But the fifth-generation warriors that appeared 3 years ago were actually a combination of humans and frogmen. Their internal devices were a perfect fusion of biological technology and mechanical metals. In other words, these warriors can combine humans, frogmen, technology, and biological technology. This is unprecedented in the history of war between the two empires. Ding Ming's face darkened. That's exactly what happened to Professor Zhao. Chu Shaoqing waved her hand and said, "That's one of the reasons. We also found that these warriors are very strong individually. Most of them are at the warlord or warlord level. We didn't even find a single one below the warlord level. They are very few in number, and they appear and disappear like ghosts. Most importantly, they don't belong to the armed forces of the Norse Empire, nor do they belong to the Frogmen. They are completely independent existences. What's even stranger is that after our detailed investigation, they don't belong to any space forces." Hearing this, Ding Ming knew that these were most likely mercenaries from the Hidden Front. He didn't expect this mysterious organization to finally surface on the front line. Chapter 778. Ding Ming asked, "Why would these new fifth-generation warriors appear in the fertile chalk galaxy?" Actually, I would like to know the answer to your question as well. Chu Shaoqing could not help but smile bitterly. She suddenly turned on her wristwatch and pulled up a miniature interstellar map. This is the fertile chalk galaxy. Its depth and length are no more than 5 light years, but its complexity is no less than the devouring sector. Even today, we and the frogmen have not completely figured out the terrain. Ding Ming asked, "What does this mean?" Chu Shaoqing said, "Ever since the Steel Main Empire's forces entered the fertile chalk galaxy, our front line has been retreating. Now, there's almost no way to retreat. If we retreat any further, the frogmen and the Steel Main Empire will take full control of the fertile chalk galaxy. Then, these two alien civilizations will directly threaten our borders and the Holy Grail Federation. Even if they turn around, they will be able to invade the devouring sector. I believe that no matter which country's leaders, they will not want to see this happen." Ding Ming pondered and said, "The dynasty's leaders must have thought of this as well." Chu Shaoqing said, "That's right. The dynasty has already planned a new military strategy 4 years ago. They have regrouped their fleets from all the major war zones and forced the frogmen to retreat again. The current situation is that we and the frogmen each have half of the galaxy. The frogmen do not dare to launch any large-scale military operations. The frogmen's reproductive ability is their advantage, but it is also their weakness. This is because behind the expansion of their military, there is a corresponding supply of resources. The frogmen do not have that much war resources." She paused for a moment before continuing, "but we also do not dare to attack recklessly and take down the fertile chalk galaxy in one fell swoop." Ding Ming frowned and asked why. Chu Shaoqing explained, "One of the reasons is that we do not have the models of the 7th-generation warriors. If we continue to attack, it will cause incalculable casualties. This is something that the Chancellor does not want to see. The other reason is the core problem. If we continue to attack, the front line will be stretched to almost 10 light years away. This is beyond the range of the dynasty's army. When that happens, the rear will be empty, and this will give the Holy Grail Federation an opportunity to attack." Ding Ming said, "Didn't the dynasty and the Federation sign a ceasefire agreement? And it has been in effect for over 100 years. The Holy Grail Federation is indeed not an enemy of the Norse Empire, but they're definitely not a friend of the Norse Empire," Chu Shaoqing said coldly. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. After joining the military, Chu Shaoqing had been influenced by the military's ideology. Chu Shaoqing waved her hand. "Strategic and political matters are not something we can control. What I want to say is that the Empire and the Frogmen have reached a delicate balance in the fertile chalk system. If you don't offend me, I won't offend you. That's the situation." Ding Ming immediately understood. "But this force of 5th-generation warriors will break this balance." Chu Shaoqing nodded. "Yes, although this force can't be compared with the army of the theater of operations, They can't be ignored because they may break the balance or maintain the current situation. The problem is that we don't know the motive of this force. Who are they? Who are they obeying? What do they want to do? We don't know anything about this. The worst outcome is that they completely side with the Frogmen or the Steel main empire and turn against us. That would be hard to say. The command center is very concerned about this problem and specially sent me back to investigate the reason behind this. Ding Meng was stunned. Why are you sent back here to investigate? Shouldn't you be at the front line? Let me show you something. Chu Shaoqing adjusted the wrist device, generated a screen, and played a video. The video showed a hellish scene of the front line. The Empire's soldiers were fighting fiercely with the fifth-generation warriors. One of the warriors in the video was dressed exactly like Professor Zhao. He was wearing a black shirt and black pants from head to toe, and his face could not be seen at all. However, this warrior was extraordinarily ferocious. He dashed across the ruins alone, completely ignoring the suppressive fire. His fists were like cannonballs, exploding wherever they passed. The Empire's side was really in a complete mess. Even the huge armored land tanks were turned into raging flames by his fists. Did you see anything? Chu Shaoqing asked. Ding Meng's face was serious. This person is at least a thermodynamic warlord. Chu Shaoqing said. This warrior has been eliminated by the frontline masters. Do you know who he is? At this time, a man's picture and a lot of data appeared on the screen. Ding Meng felt that he looked familiar. I think I know this person. You should know him, and you have had a conflict with him before. Chu Shaoqing reminded him. Think carefully. Ding Meng suddenly lost his voice. I remember now. Isn't this Professor Jia Fa from the boxing department of the Christine Academy? How did he become a monster on the battlefield? At this time, the image changed again. It was another warrior on the battlefield. This person held a long and straight ancient sword in his hand. This person's ferocity was not inferior to Jia Fa's. This was because when he stabbed with his sword, several people would die as if they were skewers of lamb. Moreover, he only had one move, and that was stab. It was simple, direct, and pure, but the Empire's soldiers could not resist it. Chu Shaoqing said, this person has not been arrested yet. He has escaped from the frontline battlefield. Ding Meng didn't reply, but his complexion was extremely ugly. This was because he was at least 90% certain that this person was Teacher Zhao Yu. This was because other than Teacher Zhao, he couldn't think of anyone else who could use such a fast and accurate stabbing sword. At least, the black-clothed warrior in front of him used the essence of the stab very skillfully. With a click, Chu Shaoqing turned off the wrist device and sighed. I know that Professor Zhao taught you the ancient sword technique that he was proud of, but since you have witnessed Professor Zhao's fall, please restrain your grief. Now Ding Meng finally understood the real purpose of Chu Shaoqing's return this time. Why would people like Professor Zhao and Professor Jia Fa appear in the war zone of the fertile chalk system? Moreover, their strength had increased so ridiculously. What exactly had happened? Chu Shaoqing suddenly said, our Empire's martial arts are very different from the Federation's. The Federation uses universal martial arts, and there are only differences in secret manuals and scriptures. Ding Meng was also aware of this. The so-called universal martial arts were something that anyone could practice. For example, the Federation's classic 7-star punch. What kind of moves were used, how the punch was used, which origin points were used. These are all fixed. Of course, the effects of different levels of martial artists would be completely different. The Empire's martial arts were completely different. The martial arts that the Empire's origin ability users practiced were almost all different. Take Flame Energy Rushing Fist as an example. The teachers of the Christine Academy might have taught it to focus on the spread of energy, bursting out, burning, and other effects, but the teachers of the Superconductor Academy might have taught it to focus more on strength, tremor, technique, and other aspects. The actual combat effects were completely different. Martial arts with the same name could derive thousands of different functions from different cultivation systems and factions. This was also the reason why the Empire's martial artists were generally better than the Federation's. The main reason for this was the empire's martial arts. Martial arts and martial arts had to be purchased at a high price. The more powerful the martial arts, the higher the price. This was especially true for martial arts that had been used by famous experts. Sometimes, you couldn't even buy them with money, because the essence and secrets of the martial arts were developed by the experts themselves. Of course, this didn't mean that the martial arts of the Federation didn't cost money. They were completely free. Most of the martial arts were universal and could be downloaded from stores, databases, administrative bureaus, and sensor cabins. The high-end martial arts would definitely require a high price, but the price was far lower than that of the Empire's citizens. Chu Shaoqing said, "That's the first point of suspicion. Most of the humans within the reconstructed warriors are low-level origin ability users in our empire. They are usually at the level of a warrior or a war venerable, but they have mastered some unique personal martial arts. For example, Teacher Jia Fa's Tian Ba Raging Fist technique and Teacher Zhao Yu's classical sword technique. Once they are modified, they can display great power on the battlefield." Ding Meng nodded. He understood this principle. The Hidden Front could only bully these honest people. If you have the guts, why don't you try to capture me and modify me? It would be strange if I didn't smash you into pieces. That's why they had no way of capturing the truly powerful experts. Chu Shaoqing continued. The second point of suspicion is that after they were modified, they were able to improve so quickly in such a short period of time. Of course, this has to do with the miraculous effects of the frogman's biotechnology, but I personally am inclined to believe that they received an even higher level of power that we know nothing about. Regarding this point, you should have the most right to speak. Chu Shaoqing also knew about Ding Meng's divine light. During the battle on planet Extreme Flame, she had witnessed the terror of the god race and the demons. For the human world, there were still many unknown powers in this universe. Chu Shaoqing said, "The third point of suspicion is the purpose of my return this time. How are they modified into reconstructed warriors? I believe that Teacher Zhao and Teacher Jia Fa must have been abducted. I originally had no clue, but fortunately, you came back." Ding Meng couldn't help but laugh. "Do you think these problems will be solved if I return to planet TT-12? Chu Shaoqing said sweetly. "If even an expert like you can't solve it, what kind of person can?" Ding Meng waved his hand. "You think too highly of me. I'm barely capable of killing you. But if you want me to be a scout, I'm afraid I'll disappoint you." Chu Shaoqing said, "Don't forget, you're also part of the Empire's military." Ding Meng said, "I don't care about other things, but I'll definitely investigate Teacher Zhao's case." Chu Shaoqing sighed. "I know you don't like being tied down, but there are too many aspects of the Empire that are different from the Federation. Without the help of the military, you'll encounter many difficulties. This time, I'm personally asking you to help me with this matter." Ding Meng sighed. "Miss Chu, you're being too serious. Have you not helped me enough? Don't worry, if I have any leads on Brother Chu, I'll definitely inform you immediately." Seeing that his tone had softened, Chu Shaoqing was overjoyed. "After chatting with you for so long, let's go to the restaurant and take a look. A few old friends will be coming soon. I believe you'll be interested in them." Ding Meng asked curiously. "Oh, old friends? Who are they?" Chapter 779. The sunset was picturesque, and the golden afterglow shone on the lawn of the Chu family's backyard. Dinner was set up in the backyard, and an elegant long white table was moved to the lawn. Chu Shaoqing knew Ding Meng very well and knew that this guy liked to eat, so the table was especially big. How big was it? There were about 70 to 80 dishes on the table, and there were many small square tables around the table. There were about 20 to 30 types of drinks on the tables, and in the center of the table was a pot as big as a copper tripod. There was a pot of red meat stewing in it, and the aroma was enough to arouse anyone's appetite. Ding Meng beamed with joy. "If you finish the food on this table, you won't even need my help. Even if you want me to help you with 10 things, it's only right." Chu Shaoqing laughed. "You say it like you haven't eaten for years. Didn't your sisters-in-law take good care of you?" Ding Ming rubbed her hands. It's not like you don't know that I've always been fighting in outer space. It's rare for me to have a good meal. Your sisters-in-law, on the other hand, are living a life of luxury in the Federation. They're much happier than me. Chu Shaoqing could not help but smile. Then you can eat to your heart's content today. At this time, Chu Yang led a group of people into the backyard. This group of people were obviously soldiers, because they were wearing the Norse Empire's uniform, and the ranks on their epaulets were not low. Chu Shaoqing was very happy. They're here. Chu Shangqing and his wife went up to greet them. It seemed that they were very familiar with each other, and this was not the first time this group of people had been to the Chu family. After some small talk, the group came to the table. The leader of the group, a handsome and dignified middle-aged military officer, suddenly laughed. Old Chu, Shaoqing, I was wondering why you prepared such a sumptuous meal today. It turns out that the guests are here. You're a little biased. Haha, Chu Shaoqing said sweetly. Uncle Lei, haven't you been thinking about Ding Ming? Ding Ming is back now. The military officer walked up and took the initiative to reach out to Ding Ming. Young man, do you remember me? Ding Ming immediately shook his hand and lowered his head. Hello, sir. The officer waved his hand and said, Hey, don't call me sir in private. It's too distant. You and Shaoqing are classmates. If you don't mind, just call me Old Lei. Ding Ming had a deep impression of this officer. When he escaped from Black Gold Base, he was chased by Baines and the others until he had nowhere to run. It was this major, thunderous battle, the commander of the patrol fleet in X-3DDT-51, who saved his and XING's lives. Ding Ming smiled. Anyway, thank you. If you hadn't found us in time, Brother Jie and I would have died in the TCP Nebula. Thunderous Battle waved his hand and laughed heartily. That's because you did well. When I was searching for you, I knew that you too would have great achievements in the future. I really didn't expect you to grow to this level in just over 10 years. It's really worth celebrating. Come on, let's not talk about anything tonight. Let's drink to our heart's content. Ding Ming sensed a little. This major thunderous battle was an advanced warlord who cultivated both heat and body strength. His foundation was very solid. In other words, an ordinary beginner warlord might not be his match. Of course, as the commander of the patrol fleet, his strength was not limited to this. He definitely had other talents that others did not have. Behind Thunderous Battle, a hale and hearty old man also walked up. He smiled and said, Ding Ming, long time no see. I finally get to see you. Ding Ming looked up and immediately bowed his head respectfully. Mr. Feng. Feng Rufei smiled with relief. You still remember this old man. That's really rare. The mission to return to the Black Gold Base was issued by Mr. Feng. Ding Ming was also sincerely grateful to this respected military boss. It was because he returned to the Dead Silent Star that Xiao AI was released and reunited with her. Back then, Ding Ming had secretly peeked at Elder Feng and was rebounded. However, today, he was able to see Elder Feng's strength with a single glance. This was a primary level battle saint with a solid foundation. At the same time, he also cultivated two types of telekinesis, the illusion and kinetic energy. It was no wonder that Ding Ming, who was only a warrior, had suffered an earth-shattering backlash when he peeked at Elder Feng. Of course, the military rank of the Empire was not equivalent to one's strength. Thunderous Battle was a major, Mr. Feng was a colonel, and Chu Shaoqing was a major general. The main reason was that they were in different fields. The patrol fleet and the frontline combat fleet could not be mentioned in the same breath. In terms of command scale and combat authority, Chu Shaoqing had much more power. Mr. Feng, on the other hand, was not interested in promotion. He was mainly responsible for dealing with all kinds of difficult cases in the Empire's military. His contributions were enough to surpass Chu Shaoqing's. Therefore, everyone in the Chu family maintained absolute respect for Mr. Feng. Other than Mr. Feng and Thunderous Battle, there was also a handsome young officer with a cold expression. Judging by his military rank, he was also a major. The rest were the entourage. The group quickly sat down. Due to the large number of people, Ding Ming did not want to sit down. Mr. Feng on the other hand, was quite emotional. In this era, the new generation really excels the old. Back on the space station, Ding Ming was only a beginner warrior, and Xiaoqing was also a new recruit. Now, Ding Ming has grown up, and Xiaoqing is already a fleet commander. I think we should retire in a few years. Of course. Thunderous Battle raised his glass. It's the young people's world now. Come on. It's not easy for us to get together. Let's have a toast. Ding Ming noticed that, although the young officer looked serious, his eyes were constantly switching between Chu Xiaoqing and himself. With Ding Ming's eyesight, he could tell at a glance that the young officer was most likely Chu Xiaoqing's admirer. However, there was a strong hostility in the guy's eyes. Chu Xiaoqing also noticed it. She raised her glass and said, "Luo Jie, let me introduce you. This is Ding Ming. He was my classmate when I was studying in the Christine Academy. He used to be my training partner, too. Now that I'm back in my hometown on planet TT-12, it's a good opportunity for us to get together." Chu Xiaoqing turned around and smiled. "Ding Ming, this is Luo Jie, my colleague. He is now working in the Special Operations Department of the Empire's military." Out of politeness, Ding Ming raised his glass. "Hello, Luo Jie." Unexpectedly, Luo Jie didn't even raise his hand. He said coldly, "I've seen your name before. It's on the latest wanted list issued by the Holy Grail Federation. You seem to be a Class A wanted criminal of the Federation." He thought that this message would shock everyone, but who would have thought that everyone's faces were calm? Thunderous Battle said casually, "Actually, this is a good thing." This time, it was Luo Jie's turn to be stunned. "Uncle Lei, how can this be a good thing?" Thunderous Battle smiled meaningfully. "How can you become a Class A wanted criminal of the Federation if you don't have some ability? This proves that Brother Ding Ming is a good person." Thunderous Battle had taken great pains to hint to Luo Jie that he shouldn't underestimate the young man in front of him. He brought Luo Jie here today to give Luo Jie a chance to make friends with this young talent. Luo Jie shouldn't put on airs as the son of an official. Chu Xiaoqing explained with a smile, "Ding Ming, Luo Jie's father was a general of the Empire's military. If you have the permission of the Special Operations Department, you can investigate a lot of things with less trouble." She was helping to put in a good word for both sides. Not only did she point out Luo Jie's identity, but she also hinted that Ding Ming was not a simple person and wanted to participate in the investigation of the recreated soldiers. Luo Jie was definitely not a fool. Uncle Lei, who had always been considerate of him, said so there must be a deeper meaning. However, he was still very hostile to Ding Ming. This guy was dressed in rags. What did Miss Chu see in him? Luo Jie said meaningfully, "Hello, Ding Ming. I don't know what is your good point. What is it about? I would like to see it for myself." Ding Ming couldn't help but smile. This young man was about the same age as him, so he must be unconvinced. Ding Ming glanced at him and found that this Luo Jie was actually quite outstanding. He was actually an intermediate warlord. Among origin ability users, being able to reach this level at this age was already quite rare. Ding Ming smiled and said, "I wouldn't dare. I only have some trivial abilities. They can't be used in the Grand Hall." Luo Jie didn't reply. He just stared at the table full of dishes. Suddenly, dozens of plates flew into the air and stabilized themselves in the air. Then, they quickly rearranged themselves and spun in circles like a circus. After a few rounds, they returned to their original state and landed back on the table. Not even a drop of soup was spilled. Of course, his actions were only an eye-opener for Xing Yi, Chu Shanqing, and his wife because Xing Yi was slightly weaker and Chu Shanqing's wife was an ordinary person. Wow, so mysterious. Is this telekinesis? Xing Yi had always been obsessed with telekinesis. "I've embarrassed myself." Luo Jie smiled and turned to look at Chu Xiaoqing. "Does this count as my good point?" Chu Xiaoqing smiled and said, "You've improved quite quickly. You weren't even at this level 2 months ago." After receiving Chu Xiaoqing's affirmation, Luo Jie's cold face immediately blossomed into a bright smile. Lei Zhan turned his head and said hesitantly, "Elder Feng, you see?" Feng Rufei nodded and smiled. "It's fine. Young people are all a bit arrogant. They like to show off after learning some superficial things. These words made Luo Jie unhappy, but he didn't dare to lose his temper in front of this respected senior. Elder Feng, this is the true sight type of martial arts you mentioned before, right? Feng Rufei nodded. Yes, this type of true sight requires the support of telekinesis. You used it very well. Luo Jie then looked at Ding Ming. I just don't know if Xiaoqing's classmate has such a good point. Of course, I believe that someone who can sit at the same table as Xiaoqing should have some skills. Otherwise, he shouldn't be sitting at the same table. He was just short of saying, if you can do the same, I'll only acknowledge you. Otherwise, you can stay on the side and play with your eggs. You don't have the right to eat at the same table as me. Ding Ming suddenly laughed. His expression was like watching a child play house, and he was even thinking highly of himself. What are you laughing at? Luo Jie was a bit dissatisfied. Ding Ming smiled and said, May I ask how old you are? Chu Xiaoqing took the initiative to answer for Luo Jie. Ding Ming, you're actually about the same age. You should be 1 year older than Luo Jie. Ding Ming nodded. At 33 years old, you can cultivate kinetic telekinesis. It is indeed rare. Luo Jie's lips curled into a proud smile. I didn't expect you to know telekinesis. It's just... Ding Ming's tone changed again. There are too many impurities in your body. They hinder the flow of origin energy between origin points and affect your brain, so your kinetic telekinesis isn't pure. If I'm not wrong, your telekinesis isn't a problem, but if you really want to control an enemy from a distance, you have no chance at all if you meet an opponent above the combat master level. What did you say? Luo Jie stood up immediately. Roger was only at the level of telekinesis, while Ding Ming was already at the level of materialization. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. The most shocking thing was that when Ding Ming was demonstrating his telekinesis model, he could not sense even the slightest fluctuation of origin energy from Ding Ming's body. Anyone else might have thought that Ding Ming was just a simple warlock, but Roger was not that stupid. The only explanation was that Ding Ming had cultivated his origin energy to the point of perfection. To be able to support such a profound telekinesis model, one had to be at least at the level of a battle saint. At such a high level, the most difficult thing to control was the fluctuation of one's aura. To the extent that Ding Ming was able to control it, he would give off the impression that he was just an ordinary person. Most importantly, he was only 34 years old. If Roger were to cultivate for another 100 years, he might not be able to reach this level. Of course, what impressed him the most was that Ding Ming not only did not blame him, but also told him how to solve the problem. Thunderous Battle laughed. Little Jie, I think that since Brother Ding is so capable, he will definitely have a better way to investigate the matter of the recreated warriors. You are a member of the Special Operations Department. Shouldn't you ask your father to issue a special star-level investigation order? Roger finally understood why Thunderous Battle had invited him to the Chu family. This Ding Ming in front of him was worth investing in and making friends with. He immediately patted his chest. 3 hours. Give me 3 hours. The investigation order will be sent here immediately. Old Man Feng laughed. You're always so careless. Roger scratched his head in embarrassment. Sorry, I am still too ignorant. Let me do something for Brother Ding Ming to make up for my ignorance and rudeness. Ding Ming also laughed. He knew that Chu Xiaoqing's dinner would not be so simple. Chu Xiaoqing had a tacit understanding with him. She smiled and explained, Ding Ming, the star-level investigation order issued by the general will make you twice the result with half the effort. Xing, he had just obtained a psychic power. She was so excited that her face turned red and she chattered nonstop. However, with her description and explanation, Ding Ming finally understood the power of the investigation order. The Special Operations Department of the Empire's military was a very special organization. It was specially set up to deal with all kinds of difficult and complicated diseases, unnatural phenomena, and confidential military matters. This organization was only responsible for people above the rank of general. Every time there was a confidential mission, a special investigation order would be issued. This investigation order was very powerful. The holder did not need to ask for permission from their superiors. They could directly mobilize all military and administrative resources. When necessary, they could use force without accountability. In other words, it was fine to kill people in the Empire. This was much more convenient than doing things in the Federation. Ding Ming had so many enemies in the Federation, but they were all killed by him in outer space. Moreover, this investigation order was recognized by the Federation. They would give a certain amount of support and recognition when necessary. The investigation order could only be effective with the authorization of someone above the rank of general. It was obvious that the Empire's military was very serious about the fifth-generation recreated warriors. From another perspective, the military had also noticed the complicated organization known as the Hidden Front. With Xing Yi's detailed explanation, Ding Ming learned that Old Feng was also a security consultant for the Special Operations Department. He could not help but sigh. Chu Xiaoqing's power was really great. She actually managed to invite the three of them to visit her home. Ding Ming pondered and said, "How many fifth-generation recreated warriors have been found on planet TT-12? As soon as he asked this, Roger immediately answered, "There are 4 in total. 2 from Listine Academy in Jinfeng Oasis, and 2 from Superconductor Academy in Suifeng Oasis. They are all semi-retired teachers of the Academy." There was no doubt that Jia Fei and Zhao Yu were from Listine Academy. Roger continued to explain, "We have investigated the school's files. There is no problem with the 4 teachers. At least, there is no problem when it comes to treason." Ding Ming nodded. Even if they defected, it is impossible for them to betray themselves. Everyone nodded. The meaning of his words was clear. The 4 of them must have been captured by accident. Roger said, "We have also done an investigation. The 4 teachers did not have any enemies when they were alive. Their social circle is relatively simple. It is quite difficult to find clues." Ding Ming smiled. "You won't be able to find any clues at all." Roger's attitude was very proper. He lowered his head and said, "Then, please enlighten me, Brother Ding." Ding Ming said, "There's a reason why the other party chose to target the teachers. It is because most of the teachers in the academy have retired from the battlefield. They have rich combat experience and mature personal martial arts. Once they are modified, they can be used directly. Moreover, their power is not bad. It does not take much effort to cultivate them." Everyone listened quietly. Ding Ming said, "Secondly, although the martial arts teachers in the academy used to be soldiers, their level of origin ability users is not high. This makes it easy for the other party to launch a sneak attack and kidnap them. Therefore, these academies should be distributed in the peripheral planets of the Empire or some ordinary schools." Instead, she applied for the Chiozei City branch of Howin Corporation. She has been working in the public relations department until now and has not left this company. Roger said, "What about the last one?" Star Art's expression turned serious. Ming Dong, male, 25 years old, a local of Golden Plentiful Oasis, Autumn Pool City. He studied at Leaston College at the age of 17 and is a student of the classical swordsmanship faculty. His tutor is Zhao Yu. He didn't graduate either and left the college at the age of 19. He gave up martial arts and started from scratch, establishing the Spirit Wind International Trading Company. He deals in materials and equipment, and the data shows that his business dealings are very complicated. There are more than 30 platform companies doing business with him. Furthermore, his transport fleet has no lack of experience dealing with many outer space factions. The Spirit Wind Company is located on planet Radiant Moon of the Beyonder System's planet Orange Plentiful. The 4th student was too suspicious. Based on the time, Mr. Zhao had disappeared 6 years ago. That was the time when Ming Dong left the college. The timing was very consistent. Moreover, in 6 years, he had turned from a graduate to the boss of a big company. At the same time, he had started from scratch. There was a big problem here. Roger immediately stood up. This Ming Dong definitely has a huge problem. Let's investigate him now. He was the kind of person who would leave as soon as he said he would. Surprisingly, no one stopped him. Only when he walked out of the backyard did Elder Feng look at Ding Ming. Ding Ming, what do you think? Ding Ming said with a wry smile. I keep feeling that it's a waste to leave without eating. The military's investigation can be left to Brother Roger. With that said, he reached out to scoop up the red meat in the middle of the pot. His action made it seem like he wanted to hug the entire pot. Thunderous Battle raised his glass and said, All right, the matter is settled. Can we drink? Ding Ming also raised his glass. Let me toast you first, sir. Seeing the two of them toasting each other as if they didn't take the information seriously, Chu Shaoqing immediately knew in her heart that Ding Ming's suspect was definitely not Ming Dong, but that Gu Yuan. The first two students could definitely be ruled out, but the latter two were suspicious. Ming Dong was the most suspicious, but this didn't mean that Gu Yuan wasn't suspicious. Ding Ming and the others ate for 4 hours. During the dinner, Thunderous Battle and Elder Feng mainly asked about Ding Ming's recent situation. A group of people drank and chatted happily. This was a rare leisure time for Ding Ming. After dinner, they did not leave. Instead, they chatted in the guest room arranged by the Chu family for most of the night, especially about Ding Ming's experience in the God War Starfield and the Steel Main Empire, everyone's side. Of course, after knowing about the concentration camp, Elder Feng and Thunderous Battle would definitely take care of it. They would be very busy. The next morning, Ding Ming said goodbye to the Chu family. Chu Shaoqing also knew that this guy was used to being alone and did not like to travel with others, so she did not ask him to stay. According to the data provided by Star Art, Ding Ming quickly entered the city center of Chiuza City. The construction of the Empire's cities was far less advanced than that of the Federation's. It was mainly due to the lack of technology, let alone a city on a peripheral planet. The only difference was the space station. The Federation space station was like a Skynet that scanned the ground 24 hours a day. If someone caused trouble or something abnormal happened, the smart robot police would immediately descend from the sky. The Empire's cities could not reach this level. The peripheral planets relied on the guards and citizen protection teams. However, the city center of Chiuza City was still very prosperous. This was a relatively modern office area. Tall office buildings rose from the ground and stood in the center of the city. The streets were also crowded with people and traffic. The Golden City building of Howling Group was located in this building. The height of 50 floors also showed the noble status of the group. At least in Chiuza City, it was a first-class company. In fact, Ding Ming had interacted with Howling Group before. Back then, he was sparring with Chu Shaoqing at the Verdantarntown dojo, but he was fired after only 1 day. This incident was a bit funny. Later on, the manager of the dojo went to the school to cause trouble and angered teacher Zhao. This made Ding Ming have a bad impression of him. Of course, it was too easy for Ding Ming to investigate a person on the spot. Downstairs of the Jincheng building was a bustling commercial pedestrian street. Ding Ming casually found a flower bed and lay down on the bench beside the flower bed. He was dressed in rags and did not wash up at the Chu family's residence the night before. Lying on the bench with messy hair and a dirty face, the passers-by all thought that he was a homeless person sleeping. No one paid attention to him and kept their distance. However, the situation inside the Golden City building was completely under his control. The psychic had already flown into the building and accurately captured the public relations department on the 36th floor. This public relations department was decorated quite fashionably. All the major office areas were filled with gorgeously dressed beauties. The innermost office was the manager's office. Ding Ming thought to himself, could this Gu Yuan be the public relations manager now? The psychic seeped in again. Sure enough, there was a good-looking woman sitting in front of the big desk. This woman was wearing a black professional suit, and her long legs were wrapped in thin black stockings. Chapter 782. Gu Yuanyuan didn't go home on the sixth day. It was a rest day. The woman dressed up carefully and set off from the hotel. The place she went immediately made Ding Meng suspicious. Champs-Élysées Street, 2 kilometers away from Leaston Academy. This was also a commercial pedestrian street in Chiozé City. The key was that it was too close to the academy. Next, Gu Yuanyuan opened Ding Meng's eyes again. This woman kept inviting people out from 9 in the morning. The people who came were all boys from the academy. Gu Yuanyuan actually had a 2-person world. The 2 of them went shopping with their arms around each other's shoulders. They were very intimate and bought a lot of daily necessities. She took the initiative to spend money to buy these for her little boyfriend, and she had a total of 6 boyfriends. In the evening, Gu Yuanyuan returned to the Jinsheng building in the city center. Ding Meng saw the message on her wristwatch. The boss of the Chiozé City branch company would fly back to Planet TT-12 from Planet Fanway tonight. There was a middle-level management meeting in the company. As the manager of the public relations department, Gu Yuanyuan had to attend. There were quite a lot of middle-level management in Howen Group. The huge meeting room was filled with 60 to 70 people. The boss of the branch company was a handsome man with gold-rimmed glasses. Ding Meng felt that this person was somewhat familiar. Now that the wristwatch had been authorized to use the investigation order, Ding Meng simply connected to the military database and directly extracted the information of the boss of the branch company. After taking a closer look, he couldn't help but be amused. Hu Qi, the chairman of Howen Group's Planet TT-12 Chiozé City branch company. I was wondering who it was. Wasn't this the manager of the Human Resources Department in Qingzi Town Martial Arts School back then? This kid is good. After more than 10 years, he actually climbed to the position of the chairman of the branch company. This Hu Qi must have had plastic surgery. He looked like a gigolo. He spoke for a long time on the stage. Most of it was about achievements, sprints, and cheers. At 8:30 p.m., Hu Qi announced the end of the meeting. Just as many employees left in a hustle and bustle, Hu Qi waved his hand again. Manager Gu of the Public Relations Department, stay here for the time being. Prepare the contract signing plan for next week. Come to my office. The chairman's office was located on the top floor of the building. It felt like a magnificent restaurant. She originally thought that it was a normal work exchange between superiors and subordinates. In the end, the moment Gu Yuanyuan entered the office, the 2 of them immediately hugged and kissed passionately. They directly did some indescribable things on the office desk. Ding Meng was amused. It seemed that the 2 of them had a secret relationship. After a long time, the passion subsided. The 2 of them attacked him almost at the same time, but he was fine. Struggling was futile. Ding Meng then looked at Gu Yuanyuan on the table. I always treat women better. Tell me, what happened to Teacher Zhao back then? I'll give you this chance. Gu Yuanyuan said nervously. I don't know. Ding Meng opened his palm. Her dagger-like short sword spun around and then disappeared with a whoosh. Then, Hu Qi suddenly let out a pig-like wail in the distance. When he turned his head again, Hu Qi was already lying on the ground. The short sword pierced through the center of the back of his hand and came out of his palm, nailing his entire palm to the floor. Hu Qi fainted from the pain. Ding Meng stared at her expressionlessly. Your chest is very big. I wonder what the consequences will be after it's pierced. He waved his hand again, and the short sword magically appeared in his palm. Hu Qi, who was beside the sofa, woke up from the pain. He jumped and twisted on the ground like a prawn, and he was in so much pain that snot, tears, and saliva flowed out. His palm was completely pierced, and blood kept spurting out. Gu Yuanyuan was so scared that her face turned pale. She had never seen such cruel means before, so she immediately replied, Yes, I leaked Teacher Zhao's whereabouts back then. Ding Meng asked, Why did you do that? Gu Yuanyuan said, They wanted the information of the teachers in the academy who had private martial arts techniques. As long as they confirmed that these martial arts techniques were useful to them and sent the teachers' whereabouts and patterns, CEO, who would give me a sum of money. Ding Meng asked, How much? Gu Yuanyuan said, 300,000 star coins. Ding Ming stared at her. For a mere 300,000 star coins, you are willing to betray your teacher? Gu Yuanyuan didn't dare to meet his gaze. She lowered her head and mumbled, when I was studying at least in academy, my family was very poor. I couldn't even afford a box of amplification agent. Ding Ming ignored her. Open your personal card transaction record back then and show it to me. Gu Yuanyuan could only open her wristband obediently. The transaction record on the light screen clearly showed that Hu Qi had indeed transferred 300,000 star coins to her 6 years ago. It seemed that Gu Yuanyuan was telling the truth. Ding Ming nodded. I can understand you, but you can't understand Teacher Zhao. It should be an honorable thing to be his student. You didn't take the good road and insisted on playing dirty tricks. I'll return this short sword to you. After saying that, he casually waved his hand. Gu Yuanyuan's eyes immediately bulged out like a dead fish. She couldn't even make a sound and slowly slid down from the table to the ground. Her own short sword was stabbed into her towering chest, and the hilt was nowhere to be seen. According to the information from Teacher Zhao's optical computer, Teacher Su was indeed a fishing expert, but he did not have much time to go out. Now that he was old, he was in a semi-retired state and spent most of his time recuperating in school. Fishing was also addictive. Those veteran fishing enthusiasts liked to fish all night, and they had to go all the way out of the city to fish in the wild. Tinshui Park was such a good place because the upper reaches of the Jinxiu River in Chiuza City passed through the park. This river nurtured hundreds of thousands of hectares of rice fields and wheat fields in the Jinfeng Oasis, so it was named Tinshui Park. A man-made lake had been built in the middle of the park. It was already late at night, but there were about 34 people fishing around the lake. They were all people around Teacher Su's age. Ding Ming found a patch of grass and sat down alone. He opened the fishing rod and hung the bait before starting to fish. He was not pretending. When he was young, he had followed Sister Wen He and Brother Zhengming to wander around. Fishing was a necessary survival skill. Therefore, he had just sat down for an hour or so when the bucket was filled with a bunch of lively fish. Little brother, you're really good at fishing. A white-haired old man beside him could not help but come over. Yeah, we've been fishing since 7 o'clock, but we don't even have half of the fish you've caught. There was a young man beside the old man. They were probably father and son. The two of them were very envious of Ding Ming. Ding Ming smiled and said meaningfully, I'm just lucky. I'm not good at fishing. The big fish are all behind me. As the time gradually approached 1 o'clock in the morning, the number of people fishing around the lake gradually decreased. Other than the father and son, there were less than 5 people left, all of whom were middle-aged men. Not long after, the young man's fishing rod vibrated violently. It was obvious that a fish had taken a bait, and judging from the vibrations, it was probably a big fish. The young man pulled the fishing rod hard, but found that he could not pull it up. Little Nian, let me help you. The old man stood up and reached out to grab the fishing rod. The father and son worked together, and with a splash, a big fish about 1 meter long was pulled out of the water. Yes, the young man waved his fist vigorously. We finally caught a big one. Ding Ming could not help but be attracted by the fish that the father and son had caught. The fish's body shone with 3 colors, and its scales were as sharp as blades. It was the famous sweetwater fish of planet TT-12, and was also a well-known specialty of the Empire. The father and son were overjoyed. At this moment, Ding Ming's fishing rod vibrated violently. Ding Ming could not help but smile. It seems that a big fish has taken the bait. The young man was pleasantly surprised.